Aye. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Just to the agenda. Do we have any additions or omissions to the agenda?
I think we have.
Yes, we do. Let's see. Okay, we were at a meeting today at the Public Safety Complex, and one of the lanes was removed that was planned for the edge of Chief Justice Cushion Highway. That would have left a much wider visibility lane for fire trucks coming in and out. That's been eliminated, so now we need to discuss and approve a vegetation management plan for the public safety building. And what they're proposed is, as you come out onto Chief
Why don't we,
Justice-
do we want to just make that part of the agenda, Pat?
Yep.
Okay, so what are we calling it?
Discuss and approval of vegetation management for
Chief Justice,
Public safety.
Public safety
Yeah.
building.
Public Safety Building.
Okay.
There's two informals. One is on here, one is not. Mr. Bajorkland had a question on a Glades Road property. It won't be a vote. He's just asking for advice as to what direction he might want to go on that.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Anybody else?
Yes, I think we have to talk about whether, how, or if we have to move the second meeting next month because it is in conflict with the Board of Selectmen meeting.
That's going to be the, what,
19th.
19th?
Somebody had a suggestion on that, didn't they? Through email or not?
Yeah,
I didn't see
Try to
it.
meet earlier in the
yeah, we were
day.
thinking about trying to meet earlier. We
A
can
day
figure
late,
it
I
out.
can make a day later.
$1 short.
Anyway, I think it needs to be on the agenda.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, public safety, Glades, and
And I'm just
meeting.
going to give you a real quick update on some trail stuff if it's not in here. It'll only take a minute.
Yeah, it's on there for the other administrative items.
Okay. So, motion for those pieces?
Move to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks.
Where are you, Penny?
Yeah, right, that's right.
Who's got the book?
Paul,
No,
You have the book.
oh, you guys are brutal.
That's why you came.
I was supposed to be taking secondary notes.
Actually, thank you very much, Joan, for volunteering here tonight. We appreciate
well,
it.
we'll see.
Oh, thank you so
We'll see
very
how
much.
she does first.
Carol's still out with a broken wrist, so.
That's how tough we are around here. You either get it done or pay the consequences.
So we've got guys here on Hunter's Pond that we want to move along so that you can keep going. So why don't we start with that, please?
Thank you.
Do I have to, I gotta read.
Is it the keep? What's the...
No, usually.
me one second.
Somebody else.
Can you get this on camera? Yeah, great.
On September 21st, 2016, at 6:20 PM, the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission, excuse me, will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of the Town of Scituate DPW/Al Bangert to remove the dam at Mordecai Lincoln Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening.
Do we have a butter cards?
You know the old song, "There's a hole in the bucket"? Then fix it, dear Liza, dear Liza. Well, this project actually started out as a DPW wanting to pave Mordecai Lincoln Road. And in the course of doing that, we found out we had a near collapsing culvert underneath Mordecai Lincoln Road. So we need to fix this culvert, but unfortunately, it's part of a dam structure. So we began looking at what we had to do. It was a pretty big project, and clearly had a lot of wetlands considerations. So we had a project team that had worked on Musquashnet Pond to...
Only taken about 5 years, but you got that.
Yeah, it did, eventually. It had a little controversy, but it improved the pond, and then so the project team said, let's move our attentions over to Hunter's Pond and see what we can do with that, and looked at the cost of repairing the dam, removing the dam, what would it, we're not owners of the dam, but the owner of the dam didn't have the resources to do the dam safety assessment that was required by the state, so the town stepped in and did a preliminary, kind of a pro forma dam inspection to find out the condition that the dam spillway was in. Consequently, we were able to determine the cost, and the cost of removing the dam is far lower than the cost of repairing the dam, and then it turns out there's some really significant ecological benefits to removing of the dam. So we are here at the end of about a 4-year project team work on studying Hunter's Pond, working with the abutters, understanding the abutters' needs, bringing the abutters along on board with this project, bringing the owner of the dam on board with the project. And we now are, after a series of grants, at the 90% design level, and we're here to discuss with you obtaining the necessary order of conditions so that we can proceed with this project. And I'm going to turn now to Chris Hool, who is to my right. Chris is with the Department of Ecological Restoration. He's a specialist there and has been leading this project from that end of it. So, Chris.
Can I just ask one, have any of the members that are here were members when we started discussing this? Do you remember any of the hearings we had with regards to Hunter's Pond and the abutters and draining the pond? And there was, I think Sarah Grady was here, and there was others, and they talked about the stream flow through the pond and sort of how that would go back together. So it's been pretty extensive, and other things have been before us so far, but as you point out, it's been fairly long going. I know Penny obviously had a lot of history with this, and I do, but I'm not sure.
I think the last time they were here was when I first started, so.
Okay.
Right, and we've been very fortunate in obtaining a series of grants and in hiring a specialist firm, Princeton Hydro. Paul Woodworth from Princeton Hydro is here today to discuss the project as well, as are other members of the partner team, and Chris is going to introduce them.
Great.
To you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Al, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the commission for having us here today. Again, my name is Chris Hool. I'm from the Department of Fish and Game, the Division of Ecological Restoration. I would like to acknowledge some of the other partners who've been involved in this project, as Al said, for the last 4+ years. We have Bill Bennett from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We have Eric Hutchins from the NOAA Restoration Center. Jason Bertner from the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management, and not here today, but a strong partner, as you mentioned, is Sarah Grady from the Massachusetts Bay Estuary Program. So, they've put in a lot of effort over the years to get the project where it is today. As Al said, we're in the final design stages now, and hope to implement this project come next summer once we have enough funding in place to do that. So. Al and the rest of the town approached us, our division, the Division of Ecological Restoration, in 2014, and we accepted the project as a priority project. This is a competitive process throughout the state, and we tend to accept the projects that have the highest ecological value and the highest value for public safety and other measures. We have a system in place that categorizes and ranks all the dams in the state based on ecological value, and this project, the Hunter's Pond Dam removal, ranked in the 95th percentile. So across the state, one of the highest ranking potential ecological benefit projects in the state. There's a number of reasons why. Probably the biggest is that removing this dam would allow access for river herring and other migratory species of up to 5 river miles and over 200 acres of spawning habitat. Now that spawning habitat would be in Lily Pond and Aaron Reservoir, and it's my understanding that some others in the room here have worked pretty hard over the years to restore and improve the fish ladders on those two ponds, Lily Pond and Aaron Reservoir. So this would be kind of the last piece in the restoration of Bound Brook. So as I said, this would open up spawning habitat and rearing habitat for river herring. It would benefit rainbow smelt, which we know spawn just downstream of the dam, which we would expect may spawn upstream of the dam after its removal. This dam is a what's called a head of tide dam. So it's essentially the upper limit of the tidal fluctuations at that region. So it's a pretty unique habitat where it's the boundary between the estuary, Gulf River estuary, and Bound Brook, a complete freshwater system. Obviously, removing the dam would restore the natural processes that you see in a river as well as the estuary. Dams will block sediment movement and organic material movement, which is important for both of those habitats, or all of those habitats. As well as just improve water quality. We actually have some folks here from UMass, and we're working with UMass pretty closely on water quality monitoring for this site as well as dams throughout the state. So, and we've documented that dam removals do pretty well in terms of lowering stream temperatures, so benefiting cold water species, as well as dissolved oxygen. So in terms of public safety as well, this is a significant hazard dam, and it's in poor condition. As Al referred to earlier, the owner, as well as the town, knew that this project was going to be more expensive to repair as opposed to remove. If the dam were to fail during a large flooding event, you would potentially have catastrophic failure at the downstream bridge, the Mordecai-Lincoln Road Bridge, which is also obviously a historic bridge. Removing the dam would help reduce flooding upstream, the sort of nuisance-type flooding that you would see on a regular basis. Paul's going to touch on that a little bit more later in his presentation. And certainly from an economic benefit, obviously Scituate's has strong commercial fishery ties. So anything to improve herring and smelt is going to help the sort of larger commercial fishery. And certainly costs and maintenance costs for the town and maintenance burdens for the town. So eliminating the dam would remove that. So with that, I want to pass it over to Paul. He's going to touch on more of the technical items that want to make sure that we point out to you today.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
That definitely lays the groundwork. Again, my name is Paul Woodworth. I'm with Princeton Hydro. I'm going to give a quick sort of photo tour of this site. I don't have a pointer. I was really hoping to have one. The upper left-hand photo is a photo of the spillway itself, which is actually parallel to Mordecai-Lincoln Road and just upstream of Mordecai-Lincoln Road Bridge. Moving across, you can see another photo of the bridge itself. It's a masonry, cut stone, granite structure, very well built. But what's unique to this site is that it also has a culvert on the opposing side of the impoundment. I'm going to point to that now. The main spillway is about here, and the culvert is about here. And that culvert conveys flow underneath the Mordecai-Lincoln building right now, which is privately owned and recently restored. And as you can see from this photo on the upper right, it's a metal culvert that is severely corroded out. It essentially has no bottom, and that's what's causing the harm to the river, to the road crossing there. That's really what brought it to Al Banger's attention in the first place. So those two components factor in heavily with the rest of this design. Looking into the spillway or the dam itself, it's actually accreted a lot of sediment into it, and that has become vegetated, and it's vegetated primarily during the growing season. The upper right-hand photo shows it during winter months where you're outside the growing season. It looks more like open water, so it's not as vegetated. The lower right-hand photo shows what the spillway looks like during a flood event. So you can see it's actually pretty high water on the downstream side of that spillway as well, but it still is right close to the bridge crossing. And then the photos on the lower left side are close-ups of the fishways. There's actually this is a unique spillway in that it has fishways built into both sides of the spillway on either side, the right and left side. Both of them are basically non-functioning spillway, or fishways. They're not considered to be very effective at conveying the fish, and that was one of the benefits for removing this. So looking at an aerial, again, there's a photo in 2008 outside the growing season where it's basically open water, and then looking 2010 during the growing season, you see that impounded sediment delta that's fully vegetated. So that's how it looks now. And in fact, now it's under the lowest flow conditions I've seen it since I've been involved in this project, partially because of the drought.
Did that
but
work, Cal? That point? Oh, shoot.
It was battery dead.
Okay.
Oh, bummer. Yeah, do you want me to point if there's something that's not?
I mean, I understand where it is, but does anybody else need a little more?
I just have one question.
Sure.
The previous picture, the reason that there's one of the problems on the bottom right is that it's only effective at high tide. I mean, is it when the water flows the other way upstream through the culvert? It happens at high tide.
I'll get to that. I have a different slide that shows those interactions a little bit more detailed. So I'll show that. Hang on for a little bit.
No problem.
So just to orient yourself, if you haven't already, flows in this direction. This is the spillway. That's the mill building. This is where the culvert is. And likewise, spillway here, culvert here. Let's see if I'm moving along here. So this project was actually broken out into multiple phases, as Al sort of laid out. A lot of work was done sort of in an initial feasibility study a few years ago. It's now been updated, and we're in this final design and permitting phase now, which is the right column. We did a little bit, followed up on more sediment sampling to develop a more detailed sediment sampling plan, more historic resources documentation, more detailed engineering design associated with bridge scour, fish passage conditions, the culvert repair work, and there's a water line also that crosses the impoundment too. In fact, let me point out where that is now. So it's not visible, it's underwater, it's an old water line that crosses right through here. It's old enough that the town is interested in repairing it. In fact, was considering repairing it before this project got to this point, but now we're going to sort of do it all in one fell swoop. It can't be eliminated entirely. It has to be replaced, and its depth is unknown, and it could be a conflict if after removal it could become exposed. So there's multiple reasons really to remove it. One is that it's old and needs to be replaced, but it's also potentially in a position that could interfere with the channel. So we're proposing to install it at a much safer depth. So anyway, water line relocation, we're now in the NOI process of the regulatory system, and Army Corps and the dam safety permits are yet to come. Those are our next steps in this process. So, so getting back to some of the design elements here, we've discussed with the Natural Heritage Program. There's a native plant upstream that's of interest to them. So we've been interacting with them, communicating with them during the pre-NOI process to inform them more detailed about the hydraulic impacts. They've since ruled that there will be no adverse impacts anticipated to this native plant. We're also coordinating with the Division of Marine Fisheries about a time of year restriction during construction and some additional coordination after that. So both of those agencies we've been in regular communication with, and DER is in ongoing discussions with DMF about. So then I'm going to hit on a few of these in more detail, the hydrology and hydraulics items, and sediment management, and some of the design alternatives that we looked at.
National Heritage said there was no endangered species or anything that was of concern, right?
Right, so they mapped, their habitat exists upstream of the railroad bridge. And that they wanted to know more information about how we were going to be influencing water surface elevations because it's a wetland plant. Once we established through hydraulic modeling that there's really not going to be too much of a change up there, they were comfortable with this and basically ruled that there would be no adverse impact anticipated.
If I could just add, so Natural Heritage was clear up front that they wanted to see some really solid analysis on that, and as part of the NOI package, we provided that to them, which they provided a letter which was included in the package to you. So yeah, they ruled that there was no additional MESA review required on that as well. So.
Let's see. Okay, so some of the basics of the engineering design that we have actually in plans here and also presented in the NOI package is that we're talking about removing most of the spillway, actually not all of it, the full vertical extent, but to allow for the fish ladders to remain in place The fish ladders are actually concrete and tied into the one fish ladder is actually tied into a retaining wall that's right up against Mordecai Lincoln Road. We want to leave that in place to not disturb the Mordecai Lincoln Road embankment. And likewise, on the other side, that also has some stability associated with the Mordecai Lincoln Road embankment. So we're proposing basically to cut that spillway right in the middle to allow for a natural channel to go right through the bridge, but to not remove the fishways on the side. Through a sediment management that I'll talk about in a little later, we're proposing for a natural passive formation of a natural channel upstream of the dam, with some work right in the immediate vicinity of the spillway and where the water line crossing is going to be, but to allow for basically the channel to form naturally upstream in the impoundment. The repair for the culvert we've arrived at is using a slip line technique. That's where the existing culvert is left in place, but a new plastic HDPE, like a high-density polyethylene culvert, is then installed inside it so that you don't disturb what's already there. You install a new culvert in through it, and then grout and concrete at the bases all around and fill the void spaces. This is I don't want to say it's a new technique, but it's a clever technique for repairing lots of these culverts without having to do massive reconstruction and potentially disturbance to the historic foundation, to the structure of the historic mill. And then, of course, we're also looking to remove the old water main and replace it with a new water main at a lower elevation. So those are sort of the key ingredients to the design, the engineering design. Looking at the impacts to regulated areas, we're essentially talking about converting a pond into a channel and its adjacent floodplain. This would mean a net loss in land underwater, a net gain in BVW, and essentially no change in the 100-year floodplain. The same area that gets inundated now under existing conditions will be inundated under proposed conditions. And then there are nominal changes to inland bank. Basically, inland bank right now is mapped around the perimeter of the pond. This will be a shorter length of a single channel going through the impoundment. So that it involves a lateral shift, but not much of a shift really in length. And riverfront area will now apply, whereas that it technically does not apply right now because this is a pond. So there'll now be a riverfront area along this channel. So looking at one of our sheets in our plan set, this is the regulated areas plan. On the left-hand side is the impoundment. There's the delta that's been mapped as bordering vegetated wetland. I'll point that out right now. Essentially, this area is what is mapped as bordering vegetated wetland. This is the sediment delta that has vegetation on it. Under proposed conditions, we'll see some sort of a channel. Its actual pathway is a little bit uncertain at this point because the sediments are so soft. There's multiple ways that you could cut through. We've proposed what is one potential alternative for that. All of this area will essentially revert to or convert to some sort of other kind of bordering vegetated wetland. And then the other interesting aspect about the tidal influence that you were asking is that this red line essentially corresponds to what will be inundated under the highest predicted tides. And so my next slide gets into that in a little more detail.
Thank you.
So this is what's called a longitudinal profile taken out of the hydraulic model. Again, I'll point up here. So flow is essentially going this way. This is what represents the impoundment. This is downstream of the impoundment. This line here represents Mordecai Lincoln Road. This is with no dam in place, and this is comparing the tidal conditions from existing to proposed. So this would be low tide, and this is using a base flow. So this is sort of minimum flow coming down the Bound Brook. This is what low tide looks like. It's way out, way beyond the hydraulic model. This is what it's called the median high water. It's sort of the middle high tide. As you know, every day there's a higher high and a lower high. This is sort of the in-between, and that interface is the channel still downstream of Mordecai Lincoln Road. However, the red line represents the highest astronomical tide. That's the spring tide, or the highest predicted tide, and that actually will now have access into the impoundment, whereas before it only hit the dam. So looking again at upstream water surface elevation changes, this became an interest to the Natural Heritage Program. This is so So this is Country Way, this is the railroad bridge, and this is Henry Turner Bailey Bridge. The key point to note here is that basically these are comparing existing and proposed, so flood elevations under existing and proposed conditions. This being the 100-year flood, there's almost no change in the 100-year flood from existing proposed conditions. We're actually utilizing the culvert under the mill building to convey some of that flow. If we were to say block that culvert off, that would make the 100-year flood higher than it is now. So we actually need that culvert there. Under lower flows, under the what's called the base flow, the lowest flow, and the bankful flow, which is something along in between the 1 and the 2 year recurrence interval flow. We're talking about different water surface elevation changes that are on the order of 0.2 foot up at the upstream end of this impoundment, so around these bridges. So basically, the area of that sensitive species would have very little change in water surface elevation. Let's see. So again, looking at the, and I've already sort of talked about this, but this is showing the 100-year water surface elevation during the 100-year flood at the dam. This is the dam. This is the bridge. Whoops.
Sorry, was that might have been me.
That's okay.
I was getting ready for it.
So blue is existing conditions. Red is proposed conditions. It's a slight drop of about 0.3 foot. This is very small. Probably not going to be noticeable just by observation. But we predict a larger drop under the 50-year event of just over a foot, and that's not shown here, and then just over 1.5 feet under the 10-year flood. So again, the 100-year, it was actually essential to allow flow to go through that culvert under the 100-year event in order to keep those flows at or below under existing conditions. If we were to say block that off, it would increase the risk of overtopping during flood events. Let's see here. So we also looked at scour at the bridge. And the key points to notice here, we did a typical scour analysis following Mass DOT regulations. Looks at 3 types of scour. Contraction scour, which is the scour that's created by flow that goes through a constriction and it's accelerated. So it's constricted on the sides, but even under the flood events, it's also being constricted vertically. It's what's called orifice flow. It's under a higher velocity. The point being that under existing conditions and proposed conditions, there's no change really anticipated in scour. We also looked at pier and abutment scour, and this looks at the piers of there are actually 2 piers in the small bridge, and then there's abutments on either side, and so that looks at the vortices that form right around those structures. And again, there's no change anticipated for any of those, or no substantial change. A minor abutment scours, a difference in the existing proposal. Basically, we're not expecting any changes in scour of the bridge structure.
Is a vortice like an eddy type of thing?
Yeah, well, an eddy is kind of a slow velocity zone. This is actually something that's a faster velocity. So if you say, well, if you stood in flowing water and you felt, you feel that flow rip it around you, that's the vortice that forms right in there. I guess technically it is connected to the eddy that, say, is behind your legs if the flow is right in here. So that scour happens right where you're sort of interrupting flow or creating an obstruction. Okay. This gets to the sediment investigation. So ultimately, after the 2 phases, we took 8 sediment samples throughout, 2 in the upstream areas here, 3 in the body of the impoundment, and 3 downstream. We also probed the impoundment and had it surveyed. Figured that the total volume was about 3,000 cubic yards, but with the formation of a single channel, the low gradients here, we really only expect about 450 cubic yards to be mobile after the dam is removed. That's okay, I'm gonna keep talking. We also ran the typical gamut of contaminants that you test for, EPHs, PAHs, PCBs, metals, VOCs, so volatiles, petroleum hydrocarbons, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PCBs. So, and then we compare them to human health standards, MCP, soil and groundwater standards, as well as the freshwater and marine sediment sample, what are called probable effect concentration. So, above that, you would be it would be likely you'd have some sort of an impact on ecological standards. Below that, you wouldn't. Most of these were non-detect, so not detected. Metals and PAHs popped up in some of these samples and some of the downstream samples, but they were basically in the same ballpark. And so we don't really, we don't perceive that being a problem when relative from impoundment to the downstream, if that's essentially the background condition that's in this watershed. So with that, that sort of provided us justification to recommend basically a natural reformation of the channel rather than say excavation and hauling off site. That would be, it's not only is it unnecessary based on these contaminant levels, it's an extremely costly and very high impact activity. So it's something we were glad to not have to recommend at this point. The vast majority of the sediments, especially the ones that are vegetated, are likely to just sit in place and dewater, and then the vegetation will transition to something a little bit drier, a little bit less wet, but it'll likely stay in still a BVW, bordering vegetated wetland category.
So is the revegetation just a natural occurring thing, or is there planting that's going to be going on after?
That's a good question. Right now, we're proposing to allow it to occur naturally.
Okay.
And with a lot of our projects that we've done at DER and others, we'll see there's such a large native seed bank within those impounded sediments. We generally see those impoundments vegetate within 1 to 2 growing seasons. And I think Paul has some photos later on
Yeah, I
in
have
the
a good slide
presentation
of
to
that.
show you what a typical example might look like.
I'll jump to that right now.
Yeah.
So this is a project we did in northeastern Pennsylvania. I pull it out just because it has this sort of similar condition. When the dam was intact, it had a lot of spatterdock and emergent vegetation, emergent floating vegetation, and then a lot of duckweed. When we removed it, within one full growing season, that's essentially what it looked like. So it had how do you put this? Nature abhors a vacuum. It fills fast with a lot of annual plants initially, and then more long, perennial plants will eventually creep in. So it's a fast process actually. We've seen sites green up actually at the tail end of a growing season. So when a dam was removed in October, it was actually green by Christmas. And granted, that's a thin ground cover, but it happens pretty rapidly on its own. There's a native seed bank in the sediments as it is, so a lot of seeds are just sitting there waiting for the right conditions, and once they occur, they take advantage of it. That means a lot of seeds are sitting there, never gonna, without, in other situations, would never actually bloom because they're not in the right spot to germinate.
Do you ever see more invasives in something like that?
Yeah, we do. We take that into account, and so, it's something we did not think was a huge problem here because there's not a lot of invasives in the perimeter. But in areas where there is already a good established, like say a frag population or something like that, that's where we recommend sometimes going in and treating it before you do the removal. It just depends on the situation. If there's a lot established there already, then we'd have reason to believe it's going to expand. In this case, it's not a huge problem at this location, so we're not recommending it at this time. Although when we were talking to Grady, Mrs. Grady from Sarah Grady,
Yeah.
she's saying that she actually does a decent amount of this plant monitoring and does invasive plant management. And she, for example, when there's loose strife, they expect to expand. She'll do a beetle release at a site, and so because they're using biocontrols for loose strife as opposed to mechanically removing it or chemically spraying it, they'll use release of a particular kind of beetle that specializes on the loose strife, and that sort of keeps the population down. So it's an alternative.
Interesting.
Just really quickly, and I know I'm probably going over the time that I expected to have, but we did look at a variety of alternatives. One being no action, which is kind of kicking the can down the road. Something's got to happen at this dam. It's in terrible condition, and it's going to fall on someone's hands to do it. We looked also, or actually prior to our involvement, as my company tends to specialize, or at least I get to specialize in a lot of dam removals, but prior to our involvement, another firm had been tasked with estimating the cost of repairing the dam up to new, modern day dam safety standards and to install a new fishway, and they came up with a range of about $385,000 to $560,000. Whereas our estimate 3 years later for removal is about $250,000. That's a typo. There should be another zero there. But anyway, we did look at a variety of alternatives with the removal, basically with a variety of culvert options. One, blocking it off, which I already said was increasing flood elevations and not desirable for that. But other ones were involving opening it up. Now this, leaving that culvert fully open, maybe I didn't explain this well enough, but it has a weir in front of it, so it's partially blocked, basically. And so capacity through that culvert is really dictated by the weir in front of it, not the actual size of the culvert itself. So we had proposed or looked into the alternative of removing that weir altogether and just opening it up to all flow. That was not desirable because it essentially would create a false attraction to fish moving upstream. As it is now, there are two channels, sort of. One channel is coming out of the mill race and out of the mill building, and the other is coming out of the spillway. They converge at that. If there was still flow coming out of the mill race, then fish would have to flip a coin and decide which one to take. And if they took the one into the mill building, they'd run into a head wall and not get anywhere, and that would really impede the passage performance and really sort of interfere with one of the big goals here, which is to restore fish passage. So that was one reason against these two options. And this option, leaving it totally open, actually increased flows, increased velocities, and really kind of set up the foundation of that building to be subject to more flows than it has now. And we didn't want to do that because that's sort of putting the historic structure at risk. So those two were excluded, and this is essentially a status quo situation. And it turned out that the elevation of that weir is just about right, as it is now, is just about right to keep the 100-year flood elevation at or below what it is now. So we're proposing to slip line the culvert and then reinstall a weir that's at the same elevation as it is now.
And that whole process and design is being coordinated with Mass Historical Commission as well. The slope lining process and then the repairs to the head walls and the rear walls and that.
Yeah, our plans do have some details that are pretty detailed in terms of the amount of work that can be done at the outlet of that pipe, because that outlet's right into basically the cellar or the basement of that building. And if you're looking at it, you can see many iterations of repair work that was done around it. You can see the original sort of dry laid masonry, then you can see some more wet laid, you can see brick work, and you can see concrete block, and then you see concrete pour and grouting. So there's been a lot of generations of fixes on that, and we basically are trying to optimize this by sort of repairing as much as we need, but not more than we need to, because we don't want to get into that original old mill building structure. So it's a little bit of a balance between making something engineering and solid that'll last, and not totally sort of going too far into the historic structure. So that's essentially all I had at this point. We can take questions.
To any of the other folks that we're going to get to the audience. What we'll do typically is go through our members, but there was also a few other folks here with you. I don't know if Jason or, I'm sorry, I forget you, two folks, if you want to add any piece to this at this time. Okay.
I could add one thing.
Sure.
That is, if you go back two slides, the alternative number 2, which is to repair, yes, it's more expensive, but it's also extremely ugly. What repair involves is not repair of necessarily only the spillway itself, the concrete structure we think of as the dam. In fact, what the dam is that entire embankment, the roadway, all the way across there. So repair of the dam would require that all trees be removed from the berm, so that all of a sudden, instead of looking at a nice wooded lane and a little country bridge that you're crossing, we would have to site clear all of the trees and put a riprap on either side. So we'd have, instead of that treed pathway, we'd have this gravel riprap pathway.
Okay.
And that is a lot more expensive than, as it turns out, our ability to remove the dam.
Okay.
And certainly have to be maintained
Yeah.
long into the future, so
Sure.
maintenance burden, for sure.
Okay. So, Bill, do you have any other questions?
We were there this week to take a look at a little more detail than we normally do as I drive by it. And we're so fortunate to have these resources, and I think this is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to kind of watching and learning as we go along here.
Good, tremendous presentation, thank you.
Thank you.
Paul?
Yeah, no, it looks like a big list of positives.
Lisa?
I think it sounds pretty exciting, the fact that it's going to bring back a lot of the fish that have been lost over the years, and probably new species that would come in, and
Great.
terrific.
Yeah, I think it's
Matt?
great presentation.
Okay. Pat, do you want to?
I just had a question on the sediment management plan and how you decided between active and passive sediment management for this project.
Sure. I can speak to that first. We first look at sediment quality and contaminant levels. That's usually what drives the decision, but also volume. To speak to volume, when we look at a large quantity of impounded sediments, we want to know how much of that is mobile. That's what matters most to us. And if a lot of it is mobile, what could be the possible impacts to letting that go? In some cases, a downstream stream reach could be prone to aggradation. It could sediment accumulation that could make flooding worse, or there could be a structure that could be a bridge crossing that could actually encourage that kind of deposition, and that could reduce the capacity of that bridge structure. In both these cases, we don't have that problem. The bridge isn't going to allow for accumulation there, and that downstream reach is steep enough and fast moving, sort of swift water enough that it won't allow for that kind of accumulation. And the other concern is sometimes downstream habitat that could be buried, and we don't think that's going to be a problem at this reach either. So those.
Excuse me one second.
Yeah.
Could you shut the doors, please? Thank you.
Thank you.
So those are three issues that allowed us to also advocate for passive release. The other thing is that constructability comes into play when you're talking about excavating sediment and either placing it on site somewhere or hauling it off site. And hauling off site is a huge endeavor, but excavating a channel up through the impoundment can also be, it has a lot of impact associated with it. And it's not something that can be done easily with big yellow machines, especially when it's unconsolidated material like this. So it adds a lot to a complication, and really there needs to be a strong justification for having to go through that level of effort. And if the contaminant levels don't justify it, then it's really a cost that's not justified.
Just to that point, so when this is released, I would assume that there's some sediment that's going to run into the Gulf, and we're not concerned about that as being an environmental issue, or there's not enough, or it'll be carried away, or?
Yep. On many dam removals that DER has worked on, and many others in the room here, this is an issue that comes up on every project, and we've been coordinating very closely with DEP over the last probably 10 plus years on these strategies of natural release, and really, with the dam in place, what it's doing is it's interrupting that natural flow of sediment that you would have transported downstream. You tend to get what's called hardening of the channel downstream. You start eliminating habitat, essentially, because that sediment is necessary for spawning of certain species. So this is an approach that's been well accepted through DEP. We actually had our 401 water quality certification site walk today to discuss this very issue, actually, with DEP.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
How is the sampling of the sediment done to figure out what the petroleum or the VOCs or what was contained in those in terms of, you're talking about dredging, which would release whatever's underneath.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how far down you went or how you did.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first of all, when we're looking for contaminations, we're trying to find the softest and finest grain materials. So that basically put us in that delta area, and to extract that sediment, in this case we used a plastic coring device that drove it down as far as we could, and with manual resistance, cap it and pull it out, and extracted a column about 1.5 to 3 feet in depth, and then that all gets composited into a single sample and processed at the lab. Okay. So that's the extraction. Downstream, where you don't have a lot of sediment depth to go into, it ended up being steel shovel and trowel, that kind of a simple extraction technique. And then upstream was the same case. And the reason why I mentioned the sediment grain size is because we're really looking for the worst case scenario in terms of contaminants. One of the photos I showed. Let me back up and I'll show you this.
Did you do the sampling in the delta that you?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that delta, Actually, this photo is good. So basically, the vegetated delta has the finest grain material, and that's what has the highest propensity for contaminants to adhere to it. So that's sort of the worst case scenario in terms of contaminant levels. But in the reality, where the channel forms, that's in areas that are already are deeper now and have coarser grain materials that we really couldn't penetrate with a tube anyway. And so that's the material that's most likely to be mobilized downstairs. So even the lower contaminant material is what's most likely mobile.
Thanks.
The last point I'd like to add is, we do know that downstream we have, just downstream of the dam, we have known habitat for rainbow smelt spawning. And so being sensitive to that, part of the reason we're proposing this project now is we want to tee up for construction in July. So that way we would avoid the any potential impacts in early March on the spawning habitat for.
Well, do you think that spawning habitat will remain, or do you think that'll be eliminated and they'll spawn upstream after that?
I think in short term, it would certainly remain. The hope is that we would have a potential for additional habitat upstream in the impoundment. Yeah, that's a hope.
I think we're anticipating the habitat to open up in the impoundment to be preferential to the habitat that they're using right now.
Okay. Pat, did you have any other questions? No. So the audience, yes, sir.
Yeah,
And just would like to state your name and address, please.
I'm Chuck Ladd. I live in Syracuse, but we have the estate there at the Mordecai Lincoln property.
Sure.
I've met Jason, I think. You're Jason, right?
Chris,
I
think we met you out at the site
Sure.
time, yeah.
I have essentially three practical questions. The first one has to do with the culvert of the weir. There's been decapitation in the metal liner that's there now. And you mentioned that, and I heartily agree, that putting in a slip would remove that continued decapitation and deterioration of the situation there. But with that reparation, would you be shoring up what had been lost in terms of the foundation that's been eroded?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and we estimate quite a bit of material will have to be replaced below that culvert in the form of either grout or flowable fill or concrete, something to that effect. I'm a little vague on the exact construction details, but yes, contractors are aware that they're going to have a lot of material that they're going to have to put in there to shore up the base of that repaired culvert.
Well, I've sent in a letter that I'm heartily in support of the project, and I think that answers the question, and any solution is better than what's there now. Second question would be that the drainage that comes down Mordecai Lincoln comes to a culvert that's been covered over, and would there be an interplay with the storm runoff that comes in above the weir into the channel right there where it would go in, or would it be somehow diverted? Because I think you got some contaminants from road salt and that would come down through, or sand, whatever would be used to, make the winter conditions better on the road.
Yeah, so at this point, we're not anticipating changing any of the runoff patterns that exist now. So our design will accommodate the runoff that's coming in and actually cascading over that
it's not
concrete.
Working now because the culvert is basically all filled with sand or whatever. It's been covered over, I forget.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's a concrete
so
culvert.
The water diverts, instead of going to the left side of the road as you're coming down, it goes down and it actually goes down to the north side of the mill, the downstream side of the mill, and then into the stream, percolates down that way. And I was just curious whether there's been any address to the runoff there.
I can address that. That is, I think, outside the limits of this particular project, but it is definitely something that the town has responsibility for.
Well, I asked the question because if you do have, and you were talking about contaminants coming into the stream and affecting the spawning, I don't know if there's enough there that would come down through the runoff that would have to be accounted for in the overall project.
We can certainly look at adding something to that effect to the drawings when they go final to the
I think that's
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. I mean, oftentimes around town, when we're doing different projects, we're adding sort of a first flush sort of feature where these can be cleaned up. I don't know whose responsibility that gets to, but certainly if it could be part of this project, cleaning up that runoff is a great point. And
I think it relates to the.
absolutely.
Is there a catch basin there that's filled? Is that what you're
Yeah,
referring
that's
to?
right.
Yeah.
So, but even, let's say that catch basin was cleaned out, obviously there's an overflow to that, and it's not anything of any technology as opposed to the basins where typically there'd be some separation or some cleaning.
Yeah, I don't think that there's room for necessarily a BMP right there, but, incorporating, some erosion issues or something like that is certainly well within the realm of this project. And actually, the footprint of this project encompasses that area as well, so there wouldn't be any, if we were to add something at the
Is that something
final
that you
design
can,
level.
where you're still not finalized in design, that can be made part of that project, Al? Or how would that be dealt with?
If it would fit within the scope of the project, it'd be good to do it with the project, but it depends on whether we can then, if that changes our ability to get federal funding. Or, because we've applied for grants from the state and from the NOAA, so.
Right.
And then but nonetheless, putting in a deep sump, if there's not a deep sump catch basin there, is an appropriate thing to do. Either the town does it as part of the highway department, or we do it as part of the project.
Are you still, when this improvement here, does this still deal with resurfacing the road, or is that something that you're going to address afterwards?
That's not part of this project either.
Okay, so you'd be back to us, obviously, to permit resurfacing the road.
For paving the road?
Yeah. In that area.
We
Right?
don't typically get permits for paving the road, though.
We just haven't fined you yet.
Well, anyway, talk to Kevin about that. Okay, that's
No, if there's no-
that's not my area.
Any workarounds?
He's here for the dam.
Yeah.
Al's here for the
Yeah.
dam.
Another portion of the project is this project will replace that water line, as Paul had mentioned, too.
Right, and that's surely critical, and that is being permitted as part of this project, so maybe it makes sense to roll the whole thing together if it's something that could be
Oh, okay.
managed within that. I'm sorry.
My last part of the question has to do with jurisdictions. We, at one time, were asked to do a study about the safety of the dam. Bill Saloma from the Office of Dam Safety and I had some discussions about that, and they had inspectors down there. And I think it's a great idea that the dam's going. I mean, what I call the dam, the WPA affair that is where the fish ladders are and so on. But part of that's in Cohasset, and I suppose, I don't know if they need to have a sign off. But I suppose that this whole project is, now we've got dam safety out of the picture, because there is no dam, there can't be an issue. But I just
Right.
wonder whether there's been communication among the various parties there.
Yeah, dam safety permitting has yet to begin. That's sort of a next step after this.
Well, obviously though, if there's no dam.
Right.
I think there are.
Ultimately, this will deregulate the structure. That's the intent of it. If it doesn't, then we've got to go back and rethink it.
Yeah, we're essentially ready to go with the dam safety permits. Sometimes those reviews can be very technical, and they want to review hydrology and things like that. So a lot of times we'll try to submit those permits immediately after this stage, just to make sure we've covered all these bases, and then we can dig into the real technical modeling kind of aspects. But with that being said, as part of the MEPA review process, the Office of Dam Safety had wrote a letter and responded and said, which is included in your application, which states that this project is acceptable to them, where this could be made non-jurisdictional upon completion.
Okay.
Yep.
Does that satisfy your?
Oh, yeah, no, as I said at the outset, I'm foursquare square behind it.
Sure. Oh, those are good points, thank you. Does anybody else in the audience want to have any questions? I've got two. Will there still be any water flow for the dam or for the mill, or is it essentially that's not going to function anymore? I mean, we have a mill in Greenbush that still functions, you know, there's a spillway that goes through that dam. Will there be anything that continues?
Well, since I have some say in that, because we have control of the mill, first of all, the head for any kind of hydraulic process.
Will disappear?
Well, it's virtually about maybe 5 to 6 feet, and that's hardly enough to drive anything. And they put in a turbine in the early 1800s rather than having the vertical wheels, because that would give more power to the thing. But all of the internal workings of the mill are gone.
Okay.
And the other thing is that the channels are different now. They used to have, in order to run a mill, you had the spillway to control the level of the pond, then you actually had the sluice that would run the wheels. That one central channel, which I believe was there, has been replaced by the channel to the west where the fish ladders are. That's a relatively new thing, I think, that occurred in maybe the 30s, 20s or 30s, after the mill was abandoned in about 1918.
Okay.
And at that point, I think that was a cessation of any possibility for milling. And I would stand here and say, forget anything electric or hydraulic.
Okay. No, I'm just curious.
No.
Okay.
There's your answer.
Thank you.
I mean, in terms of an aesthetic, flow would be going through that during flood events only.
Okay. And then you said that the fish ladder is going to remain on the other side because it's part of the structure. But it's not going to be necessary for fish passage anymore?
No, they'll look like stairways to nowhere.
Okay. So there'll just be a clear passage on that
Yeah,
side?
right, so that, there'll be a river channel flowing through it, and then on the sides, parallel to Mordecai Lincoln Road, will be that fishway structure that's sort of right up against the abutment, but there'll be no flow over it because flow will be down below in the river channel.
Okay, great. Since hearing about this project, and like Al said, you know, kicking off with just trying to repair the roads, certainly things take a big turn. But environmentally, it's a huge gain for a whole variety of reasons, and we're excited to see how that all takes
We're
place
excited
as
too.
well. Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
So do we,
Thanks for
can we
Yeah.
close?
Thank you.
I think if we have all the information,
Do we need to wait until the final?
well, there's going to be
We can close
conditions
it,
from
don't
NEPA
worry.
and from DEP. There's going to be a series of conditions, and we can put conditions in our order of conditions saying that they must follow whatever the other state agencies come up with.
Yeah.
But we can add those, we could still close and still add them.
I'm just wondering, do you, Al, thinking about, I mean, this whole thing kicked off because you were going to resurface that road. If that doesn't apply, that's great, but if it's part of it, should that be, is there some way that that could be part of this order, or does that make that too complicated?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, the order didn't bring up any of that, the notice of intent, so we
Okay.
really didn't review for any of that.
So what do we do with that drainage piece, that repair that,
I mean, we could revisit that, because if they're going to be doing other road work.
as an
we can look
amendment or
at that
something
as-
like
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, if we need to put some riprap or something at the end of a pipe within our limits of work, we'd be open to looking at something like that.
Be hopeful more if we're going through all this process that we could actually clean up some of that water that spills into there. I know that it's not a big area and there's not a lot of extra room, but it certainly, we're going through all these efforts to...
Yeah. To Al's point, we are seeking funding, which is based solely on the footprint and the limits of work that we have in the application today,
Okay.
not including the paving of the road or any additional stormwater improvements. But, kind of working within our limits of work is certainly something that we could happen, but certainly not building like a stormwater BMP, unfortunately.
Okay,
As much as, I certainly acknowledge that would be a huge improvement, for sure.
sure.
So you want
appreciate
to,
you offering that.
Yeah.
I get a little confused sometimes between the funding of the project and the order of conditions in terms of maybe the order of conditions cover more than just this project. Is that what you're offering as a way of expediting
Might be, but,
eventual paving of the road?
right,
I'm not sure what the plan is at this point for paving of the road.
okay.
I think the
So we'll
problem
just
that
leave it
Mr.
sep-
Rad is talking about is one of maintenance of a catch basin. That's-
Yeah, I'm just saying that, but that catch basin, should we go through all this process, like, just like the pathway project on Country Way, when we were doing that, and then they were dealing with the drainage,
Right.
you were able to increase the filtration before it went into our reservoir.
And another thing that's coming to my mind is that one reason we didn't pave from the top of the hill down was there's a spring that pops out through the road there.
Right.
And we had hired an engineering firm to look at how we're going to capture all of that water and what we're going to do with it. So there's a bigger
Okay.
issue than just that catch basin and paving.
Well, hopefully we can address those things through that, which
Yeah,
would be helpful.
Right, right. That's probably where those should be addressed as one other kind of big problem.
Appreciate it.
You want to,
Sounds good, thank you.
you want a motion to close?
I would. Yeah.
Okay. I make a motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great,
Thanks again.
thank you
Best
very
of luck.
much.
Thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate
Forward
it.
to
Yeah,
watching this
thank you.
happen.
Well, we'll be sure to keep the commission updated. That's up to Paul.
I'll take a look at that real quick. I want to see what information we have on that culvert, or that catch basin.
I hope I don't make your life more difficult.
Dennehy's Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennehy's pacing outside like he's,
Okay.
I mean,
No, we haven't met. We've never-
Tony Vignani.
Paul Woodward, nice to meet you. Yeah.
So how you been?
He's, Chief-
You came all the way up here?
No, but
he's Tony Vignani's
You look well. That's good.
So that's the way you want
Grabbing anything just so we can
Okay. What's your pick on the horses?
Start going on.
A lot of big
know,
words, huh?
Email
That was hard.
That's what I want.
All right, thanks again, guys.
That
was a lot more big words than we normally use at these
Think
meetings.
about how that can work later on.
Don't, I just have your email.
It's really pretty cool.
Now at least I can understand.
So it's 781.
So who's next?
Cell phone,
What's next?
We're gonna do a couple continuances.
Okay.
738
I'd like a motion,
231.
Folks, we're running behind here, so we got to keep going.
Yeah, 'cause we usually.
Folks, take it outside if you need it, we got to keep going. All right, thanks.
so we wanna continue, or I want a motion to continue Hummel, 91 Surfside Road.
So moved.
Continue Hummel, 91 Surfside Road until next meeting?
I would say the next meeting. It's a matter of the structural engineer coming in with some additional
Well,
plans.
that would be for October, am I correct?
October 5th.
I second.
So motion to continue
Do we
Hummel
need
to
a time?
October 5th.
Do you have the second?
You
Where
can
do I
whip
set that
on
time, or?
Well, give it 6:30 again, Lisa.
6:30?
What do you got in there? So-
I'm wide open on the 5th.
All right, so
6:20,
6:30.
6:30?
Sure.
So we have a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Then I'd like a motion to continue Stocks, 365 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, a septic repair,
So moved.
Second.
to 6:35.
6:35?
Sure.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I abstain from that one.
Okay.
So you got that? Okay.
And then, so we're gonna do the RDA for the playground, since we've got a good group of folks here right now. And I'm sure they don't want to sit through a couple more NOIs if they can help it.
Oh, come on, Maura, hang out with us.
Well, I don't know, I didn't really want to follow them up either. Follow up.
On September 21st, 2016, during the 6:15 meeting at Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the Town of Scituate Recreation Department for a determination of applicability to the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaw to build a community playground with a walking path next to the WPA building on property located at 15 Henry Turner Bailey Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, you're all infamous, but you should give us your name.
All
and-
right. Well, I'll start out. My name is Maura Glancy. I'm the Director of Recreation.
Al Kozlowski, Recreation Board.
Mike Westwood, 44 Amy's Way. On advisory, I don't know if that matters.
Sure.
But he's also spearheaded this whole project, so when Jennifer Vitelli left, I actually took over, and Mike is a lot more up on everything. I've read this whole folder. This originally started with CPC funds. In 2010, they granted us to build a playground up here behind this building right here, because the other seaside was falling apart, and then they decided again to move it back to the same footprint, I believe, and with a softball field, and then they decided to build a school, so now there's a school and a parking lot. So we had to look for a new place for the seaside playground to replace it. And we were granted by the selectmen, I believe, to use the WPA building, the strip of land next to it. So we're here to discuss that with you.
And that used to be a playground there.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
Still a
swing
swing
Yeah.
set there.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah, they're there. Yep.
Okay.
That'll probably cost $1,000 to get out, it's in so deep.
Frank, could I just add something too? When this started out, we knew there was riverfront and this bordering vegetated wetland just off-site. And, you know, we looked at what areas this would impact, and the area that is grass now where the current swing set is pretty much going to remain grass. So the flood zone from the brook that's nearby doesn't come up as far as where any of the equipment is going to go. There is some buffer to a bordering vegetated wetland, but the way this parking lot in area is, it drops off about 10 feet. So it appeared to be something that where impacts would be minimal. So we didn't go through, you know, full order of conditions and a set of plans if it looked like all the work could be kept out of there. And at the same time, they're required to go to the planning board because of the materials and the type of equipment. So we're thinking that, you know, with some of the stormwater issues, if there's any fill brought in, that's going to be taken care of by planning. I know that Maura just finished meeting with the planning board, was it last week or the week before?
Yeah, September 3rd.
It is
This is
triggering
a wetlands
stormwater?
line.
It's
Well,
big enough to trigger stormwater?
Approximate high
It
water
didn't in
line.
our jurisdiction, outside that, planning
Yeah.
board was going to look at it.
Okay.
I don't believe it did, but there was also a question of what
It's this
type of
line.
materials are, is there any infiltration
somewhere we
through
gotta-
the surface
Yeah.
of what they're going to be using? So I don't know if there's any information you guys have that, from that meeting, that would be useful.
Yeah, so, so I started with the playground, just want to do the purple dinosaur over. Thought we'd just do a, you know, quick $100,000, slap it over. Then they found out we had money for CPC, went to go build the playground. So we started designing it in this spot. At that point, we realized when designing a new spot and what we had to do, just from engineering, just from design, just from like rainwater and everything, that the money we initially allocated wouldn't even come close. We'd have a nice area and then one swing. So we went back to CPC, got additional funds. As you'll see in the budget, most of, like, not most, a good portion of the whole budget is for site preparation. It's like, I think between site mobilization for the, basically getting area drains, doing the perforated piping, they have allocation for underground storage tanks, you're talking a couple hundred, like over $100,000. So as far as that's concerned, we hired a playground specialist and a landscape architect. So the playground specialist is more, not that you guys care about, to make sure there's a safe distance between every slide and everything's up at the same height. And, you know, there's no issues coming back to us from that. The landscape architect is there to do the design, everything else. Once we get approval, we'll get a civil engineer to come in, do a couple more tests. But as far as about the surface, so there will be some rubber play surface, okay? It's not latex, it's called thermoplastic vulcanized rubber. It's virgin rubber, it's not recycled rubber because the impurities in recycled rubber can't be taken out. So basically, there's going to be a couple different areas. There'll be one with the vulcanized rubber, there'll be one with a wood fiber surface. It's manufactured through a process, it's not hardwood, there's no pitch in it, there's no pine, no bark, no pallets, small chips, 2 inches. The reason they make it 2 inches, so the kids can't use it as a weapon. Also, there's no smell, so the animals don't like it. So underneath that, there'll be like a drainage filter fabric, and then, so what they're gonna do is they're gonna dig down probably 12 inches, they're gonna put a filter fabric, put a stone, and then filter fabric underneath, so it will be porous and it will be able to go through. Then there'll be a bituminous path which to walk around the outside. That's gonna be pitched to drain. And then that also dries fast. Again, they're gonna have to dig down and everything else. And then the vulcanized rubber, which is probably about half an inch thick, they'll dig down 2.5 to 4 inches to level it out. And then under that, there'll be like 3/4 inch stone. And they had a question in the other meeting because she has for drain grates, perforated pipes, underground storage tanks, for the whole issue, so the rainwater, it's not gonna flood. Like, we don't want a kid's playground, and all of a sudden there's a puddle under the swing, or there's a puddle over here, and all the wood chips slide over this way. So, obviously, I'm not an expert at it, but we basically hire people that know the area, have done playgrounds before, to help us so there aren't any of these issues.
Okay. We'll go through.
Yep.
Everybody will have a chance to weigh in. What's a little hard for us to see, because we have a plan here, and it has some resource areas, but it's also peppered with all these pictures.
All right.
So it's hard to see.
Yeah, I looked it up today on Town GIS, and one of the lines that's hard to read, it may be a water resource protection line, but it's not a riverfront area or a flood zone. Flood zone comes up and it's on the corner of the parking lot. It doesn't even come into where the grass area is. So that's the extent of the new flood zone 2016. There is riverfront area, and it goes on to the grass area by about 30 feet. And there won't be any fill in that area, but there will be the paved walkway that goes around it to meet ADA standards. So the only thing that would really be in riverfront is there's about 30 feet of grass, and then there's going to be a small walkway around that.
So I'm seeing a stone wall that's already constructed.
Right, right.
Well, there's already a wall there.
I understand.
Yeah.
So all of this area is within that, and there's already a paved parking lot for the MBTA
Right.
in a good portion of this.
No vegetation needs to be cut. It's where the wall ends. It drops off quickly off that,
Right.
too. So.
Right. I guess it's a little bit hard to read everything that's on this
Right,
plan.
right.
So you've looked at,
Right, I met with the playground architect and specialist, and we walked the site, and we looked at existing conditions, and then the proposed, if you look at on there where all the rubber surfaces, that's even totally out of our
Sure.
jurisdiction completely, so.
do you think it's feasible to get more of a plan that we would typically get with those lines on it? I mean, can the landscape architect?
Well, I can address that. So we were, when we started this like 2 years ago, we thought the selectmen approved, the town approved it. To be honest, I didn't even know we had to go to planning and conservation at the beginning.
Sure.
So that wasn't in the budget, so we went back to the landscape architect. And the reason we're here and she's not here is because if she comes, it's gonna cost quite a bit of money, and it's like 2 kid slides. And like, so if we had to go to planning board, then she's gotta come here. So we were trying to cut down cost anywhere we could.
I understand that, and I appreciate that. The
Yeah.
thing is that we have hearings for all kinds of projects, including commercial projects, private projects, and we've just had the hearings for like the safety building or the high school. Whether it's the town or it's a private person, they still have to meet the same
Standards.
standards, okay?
Yep.
And so we're not, I'm not seeing any big part of it, and I realize that Pat, as our agent, can look at some of those things. All I'm asking is, can we get a plan that shows that these pieces are met?
Right, because it wasn't a notice of intent. We didn't require the full, but
We have an RDA,
could-
I mean, what
Right.
what we're doing is what we call an RDA, which is a request for a determination. And the commission can look at this, and in the RDA, a positive determination essentially means that you have to go back and do a notice of intent. And I'm not suggesting that that be the case, but a negative determination means that you're clear to go forward
Okay.
with the project. I'm just
We're
saying,
hoping for negative. No.
that's great, no, I mean, that's, and that's.
Right, but either way, a clear
And
delineation.
oftentimes people, get confused because they get a negative determination, they
Right.
think, oh, shoot. My point in asking this is that we maintain that same standard
No, I,
for both sides, and so that's what I'm asking about. And
You know, we actually have a plan, the draft plan that came in before the colored plan with all the rubber substance, had that marked on it. So in some ways, that was a more useful plan than this final plan, which shows what you're going to be buying.
I mean,
so.
I'm not seeing all the lines
Right,
that
right.
I would expect to see
Right.
in this plan.
Yeah, I think that can be cleaned up. I think we could do that.
Okay.
With-
How soon is this?
It was supposed to be built last year.
So
you're ahead of schedule, yeah.
What we would like to do is get the final plans, everything done, get the okays, get the architect, do the final plans, get the civil engineer, and get all that done, so by January or February, we go out to bid.
Yeah.
Okay, so once the snow clears, we're already in line, they're ready to go.
I understand.
So ideally, that's the time frame we're looking at.
Okay. All right, I just, and so that works. And I don't mean to, usually we kind of run through this, but I'm just seeing enough information missing that I'm just wondering if it's feasible to continue this, get a plan that clearly shows those areas, and then allow us to vote the way that we should.
And I think I have something from the draft plan where it was measured and staked out.
Do you follow it, what I'm saying with this?
I do.
The other thing I don't see on this is whether or not, maybe no erosion control is needed because of that stone wall, but I'm not seeing anything on this plan for that.
Right.
Bill, why don't you go ahead?
Lisa, Pat and I were out there this week and we walked it and nothing jumped out at me. It looks like, it's going to be in the same footprint as the one that was there before. So,
I mean, it's all a disturbed area.
Yep.
I'm not critical of that at all. I think that it seems to me like there's already a big parking lot there, there's already a stone wall, there's already a bunch of infrastructure in place, so I'm not seeing that there's any issue. I'm just not seeing the stuff that we typically ask for in an RDA.
and I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
That was going to be my question. Is that something I could do with you, or no? Do we need to?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the information. It just doesn't show up on this particular plan, but we have it, and I could work with them. And we could have it for October
Yeah,
5th.
I mean, can you relay some of that back to the person that's developed this plan so that they can add it to the?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm good. Richard?
Good, good.
Lisa?
I'm all set.
Yes, I'm all set.
Is there anybody in the audience that wants to talk to this tonight? And I'm not trying to, I mean, I think you get the gist that nobody sees any big issue with this.
Right.
We just like to have the information that's required of something in that area. And I think a lot of it's here, but I'm not seeing some of the lines that I would expect to see unless I'm missing something.
Unless they're covered by equipment.
Yeah. Can you see them that I don't?
There's a line on there that has nothing to do with the resource area, and that's, right.
So, I mean, if you look at this plan, are you seeing all the lines that you think
No,
should be on that
I know what
plan?
you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, so we could get what you have,
Yeah.
we'll clean it up a bit, we'll get it over, and
And you don't have to make a big, I mean, you've shown us what you have. We just need to see those pieces, and I think you can see that we're just about there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So do we need to continue this, though?
I would recommend it.
And then should be able to cover it very quickly at the next meeting.
Okay.
So I'll
and you,
move to continue this to 5 October.
Yeah, and this is an RDA, so there's no time, and we can try to move it through as quickly as
doesn't
possible.
have to be a...
Okay, fair enough.
just-
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Get a second on the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck. I mean,
Yeah.
I know the frustration that you've had here. This poor thing's been...
Oh, no, it started a long time ago, don't worry about it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Frank an advisory, too. Comes in with advisory.
Do you want to do that 7 Elm Park? Is there something real quick to do? What's the name on that one? This was a piece with the engineer, is that correct?
Right, yeah. Where we left off is we closed the order of conditions. Everything was met for the Wetlands Protection Act. There
Right.
was proposed minor change to a basin and to swales.
Right.
So we asked Peter Palmieri to work with Brendan to work out the final details. I sent a letter, the letter from Palmieri was about a 4-page letter addressing the concerns. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but we have it.
Yep. I think those were brought up at the last meeting, so.
Right.
Okay.
Right, so I don't know if you wanted to summarize your meeting with Peter.
Sure, so just a quick summary of the project with the changes. I did add the detail of the drainage swale.
Is there anybody that would like to see, I think is...
Detail the drainage swale, detail the splash pad, and actually I moved the entire project south 5 feet to allow us to give us more landscape room between the rear of 11 Elm Park and the proposed construction. And so there's not as much of a pinch point here where this swale that we have going around this corner here, going around this area here. And as I said before, I resized both the infiltration basins, so everything except this proposed patio is going through the infiltration beds. And as Pat said, Peter Palmieri came back with all his conditions satisfied in the letter.
There was soil testing required at that point too, where the basins were going to be.
Yep, I did the soil testing actually the day of the last hearing. So.
It's up in Elm Park. Yeah, where's that? It's up there. It's a vacant lot. You weren't here at the last meeting.
Does anybody have any questions? I'm just going through this letter real quick. Any?
No, it's
The only question I have, and I wasn't here at the last meeting, but the only question I have is,
concerned about
the soil testing, my understanding of the discussion during the meeting was that the groundwater was very high, even during these drought conditions.
Yes.
And so the soil conditions underneath that infiltration area are different than...
Nope, they're consistent with what's out there. I mean, not very high. The soil out there is between, I found between 30 and 38 inches, which is typical for the area. And it varies from, I think, about 30 inches to as deep as 60 inches in some of the areas there. So, yes, poor soil conditions. I modeled it as the D soils, the worst soils there is. But I did had to adjust the fields, made them a little bit bigger and narrower, so that there is enough separation between the bottom of the field and the groundwater.
Okay, thank you.
I know where this is.
We take comment on this?
Yeah, the stormwater piece, if anybody, we told people last time if they wanted to read any of the reports.
Because this is not part of our NOI. This is the stormwater
Permit.
piece that goes with that. So if you have any questions with regard to stormwater. Okay. Anybody?
And we have the report on record if anybody wants to look at it.
Okay, great. So we want to take a vote to approve.
Vote on stormwater permit and then we've also included as part of the order of conditions.
Okay.
That all components of the stormwater permit have to be met.
All right. So I'll take a motion on the stormwater aspect of number 7 Elm Park.
I make a motion that we accept the stormwater report as written for 7 Elm Park.
And the plan.
And the plan.
And the plan.
Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Yeah, and Carol's put together the order with the new plan date on there, so.
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks for the work on that. Okay, so now, so now we're going to just finish up our RDAs. The Historical Society at 16. I asked Dave Ball about this the other day. He'd still someday like to visit this thing, so I don't know whether we just continue it again, and maybe we can get Dave to...
How long has it been going now?
Oh, about a year.
Why don't we just drop it till they come back?
Well, we have to continue
It
it.
was a scout project.
I know,
Yeah.
but it's like,
I don't know,
okay.
Lisa, put this thing out like a month. What have you got?
2018.
But a
How about
month is the
November
meeting we
16th?
don't know if we're going to have.
No,
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, put it on the meeting, we don't have it, so it goes into limbo.
most of our stuff goes
What was
into
the
limbo
date?
anyway.
November 16th.
A motion for that?
Motion to continue to November 16th,
Historical Society, yeah.
the Historical Society year.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And Mr. Kennedy's not here, right? Not
No,
back.
we
Yeah.
had 2 NOIs, 6:45 and 7 o'clock.
Mr. Kennedy is here.
Yeah.
What's the, do we want to stick with the IDAs and get those done and then move on to those? Yeah. Why don't we do that one next? All right. You're up, Chris. On September 21st, 2016, during the 6:15 meeting at Town Hall, the Conservation Commission will act on the request of Kennedy Country Gardens for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate bylaws to use goats to control invasive plants on property located at 85 Chief Justice Cushing Highway, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening.
Just for the record, your name and address.
Chris Kennedy, Kennedy's Country Gardens, 85 Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
Thank you. So just give us a little layout about what you'd like to do.
So what I'm basically proposing to do is, we have a lot of Phragmites that are surrounding our property. Phragmites is an invasive species, and there's a few other things in there that are invasive. And on the plan, it says goat area. And goats will eat Phragmites and other invasive plants. So we wanted to work with a goatscaping company to house some goats on the property and let them eat as much of the foliage and brush in the area. And I don't know how far they will go into the marsh. I know they don't like to get their feet wet, so it would kind of be a little bit of an experience to see how far they'll go. But we wanted to try that first before we did any more, any chemical applications, things like that. We're trying to do it as an environmentally sensitive as we can. The idea would be then down the road, we could, if we can get rid of the Phragmites altogether, we could then plant with native plants and then have a show garden that basically is open to the public 7 days a week to show people how good native plants can look. And I know, in particular, you guys and ladies get involved in situations where people have to plant natives and they get a little frustrated and they don't think they're going to look good and so forth. And we can probably help with that a little bit by showing some of the good ones. Now, there's also a website that we're affiliated with a little bit that showcases the plants on a website, and then we can get the plants that are on the website. So I wanted to kind of stick with plants within that range. And they also work with the National Wildlife Federation, so it's all good stuff.
So this is a combination of not only using the goats to eradicate Phragmites in the area, but also a replanting request at the same time?
That is something that I do want to do. I have to make sure the Phragmites are not going to come right back again, so it's going to take some time. So I don't think that could happen right away. Okay. There may be some areas where it works a lot faster, because we have some areas that we have like a wall that is kind of we have a wall, parking lot, things like that. So on I guess the north side of that line, the goat area, that's all kind of managed area, and there's some areas in between that there's not that much Phragmites, so it might happen a little faster there.
Okay.
Can I clarify something to your point?
Sure.
Are we voting on the goats and the replanting, or just the goats?
Just the goats.
I think the goats for now.
Be great to check that off.
Voting on killing Phragmites.
And I just
Eradicating. We like to call it.
I need to have something written in that we want to be able to visit the goats.
And I did mention
Visit
it.
the goats.
Yes, as long as.
And I did mention in here that the goal is to try to get rid of them in the most environmentally sensitive way I can do. So I think it would be cool to show the public what we can do. I think that the goats alone probably won't do it 100%, and I will have to resort to other ways, but there are ways like cutting the stem and treating the stem and not spraying the entire area. So I want to experiment with a couple different ways to do it so I can show other people how to do it as well.
And we don't have to think about the zoning issues or anything like that. That's Board of Health or whoever that is. We just, in our purview.
I'm not even so sure. I mean, do we need, I'm glad you're here, but if people are using a natural method like with animals, is that something that we have to?
Well, if they're working in a resource area,
Working in a resource area, because
Yeah.
you've got waste
If you want to put
consider.
I'm surprised that this hasn't come up before. I'm really
Right.
It has, actually.
Oh, it has?
Yes.
I'm really interested to see how this works.
I mean, if it's all farm,
Do they like marsh grass?
All right.
But
So the-
actually, actually, goats have come up before.
So are you
here.
guys, I know, Bill, you're all set?
Well,
Richard?
I'm basic, yeah, I'm
I
sure,
might
I'm all
visit-
set, except, you know, we do need to know where it is, because there is some things that are involved in this. You have to know where the waste is gonna go and how that's gonna be handled, because that could go into the, well, I don't mean to be so serious about it, but.
Sure, right.
And in addition to that, I love the idea, but we do need to know that stuff.
Sure. I understand. And they have been used at many golf courses around the South Shore to do similar things.
Paul?
You know, we've approved lots of people doing this with chemicals in the same kind of area, so this is, will be interesting to see, yeah.
Okay.
Lisa?
I think everything about goats is positive. I know several people in Duxbury that did goatscaping. One neighbor did it, and they saw the results of that. Next thing, the goats got moved to the next house, and the next house over, and they ate Phragmites and...
Goat job security.
And they actually took little pieces of dock and put it out so the goats wouldn't get their feet wet.
Right.
And so then they could eat more, and they just connected them. I love the idea of goatscaping.
Matt?
Great.
I think it's a great idea.
Pat, do you have anything else to
Well,
add?
I think we should get the areas staked out so we know the scope of the project. And also, if it doesn't take and you have to do the chemical application, that we should,
Then it's gonna have to come back.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, that'd be a whole separate,
Yeah.
yeah.
Different issue.
I mean,
Okay.
we could make it part of this, like, that will allow the goatscaping. If it doesn't work, you don't have to refile maybe to do some in the spring.
Would notify us of what
Yeah, and
you're
we can
doing.
go out.
Certainly.
We want to make sure there's no impacts to the good vegetation, the salt marsh
Yeah.
vegetation and things like that, so.
Okay.
I think John had
Yeah.
a question.
I own 2.5 acres in Marshfield.
Just your name and address, sir?
John Polcari, 22 Pinehurst Road in Marshfield.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 3 goats. Well, my wife does. And they take care of a lot of property.
You do?
Great. Thank
They
you.
want visitation rights, Chris.
And they eat poison ivy, too.
They eat
Yeah.
anything.
Our
Yeah.
neighbors did it with poison ivy, yeah.
Okay. Anybody else?
And they're friendly.
Do I have a motion?
There are other benefits.
No, we want a negative or a positive.
Number 3.
Number 3, so I make a motion for a -3 for the goatscaping at, hold on, let me get it, 85 Chief Justin Cushing Highway with the conditions that we're going to stake out the area, and that if we do have to come back to, chemical treatment, that we'll revisit that.
And just so I'm clear, the staking of the area is going to stay out of the marsh.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Second.
Oh, okay.
And I
Thank
think
you.
as part of that, you would want to see the planting plan for once it's cleared, what type of plants you're going to be putting in there. We want to make sure it's native and wetland.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
the whole
We have a
purpose. So we have a
All in
second.
favor?
Yeah. Aye.
All right, great.
Thanks, Chris.
Appreciate it.
you all.
This sounds
Yeah, we're looking
interesting.
forward to getting updated on how it's working out, yeah.
Awesome.
And to see
Will
the
we be able to
goats.
see the goats from the road?
See him from the road?
Yeah.
Is it going to be in the same place
Or
where
from
you
Neilgate.
showed
We
Pat
have
and
we
I?
have an employee kind of parking lot to the left of our garage.
Yeah.
And we were gonna put the shed in that spot. We have a little fence there, and we're gonna put it back there. So the idea was that I do want it this as public as possible, as many
Yeah,
people see it as
yeah.
can be. It would
So
be
you'd see
great.
it, you can't really see it from Neilgate then?
Probably could see it from 3A, though.
3A, okay.
Yeah.
Brad, are there any nurseries that you can take your clients to now and show them what wetland species are going to look like?
No, that would be great.
Great idea.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Schindler? Revocable Trust, 15 10th Ave. So where am I? On September 21st, at 6:45 PM, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Schindler Revocable Trust to raise and rebuild a dwelling at property located at 15 10th Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Excuse me, do you have the abutter cards?
Yes, I do.
Thanks. Thanks, Brad.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with Environmental Consulting and Restoration. Here with a notice of intent for 15 10th Ave on behalf of Schindler Revocable Trust. Along with me are the applicants Jerry and Maureen Schindler and family. Along with me as well is Sean Hardy, professional engineer from Hardy Engineering. And what we've submitted is a notice of intent application for a single-family home reconstruction. I'll go over the lot and then get into some of the details. The site is at 15 10th Avenue. It's, as you know, 10th Avenue off Hadley Road. Smaller lots. It's a 9,000 square foot lot. This is on the north side of 10th Avenue. There's a bordering vegetated wetland system in the back that's fairly extensive. It extends off-site and it's part of this region here.
Brad, just orientate me, please, from Hatherley, how far down?
Well, here's Hadley Road.
Okay. So you're down by the water end. Oh, no, you're up.
Right, above.
So you're above the dip.
Yes, probably, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 houses down.
Okay.
On the left-hand side.
Gotcha.
That they're building into? Yeah.
So this wetland system here that comes just into the corner of their lot is this wetland off-site here. Bordering vegetated wetland with the associated 50 and 100 foot buffer zones. The site is also within land subject to coastal storm flowage, being the FEMA flood zone at an elevation of 16 feet. The existing home shaded here in brown. What I've done is I've taken the site plan that Mr. Hardy's prepared and just blew it up and give it a little color. It's the same image that you have in your hand. The existing house is shaded here in brown. It's within the buffer zone and within the floodplain. What we're looking to do is reconstruct that house in this orange footprint. You see the proposed house with stairs and decks off the back. The reason for moving the house back is so that it complies with the zoning requirements. It's all within existing lawn. The area is fully developed and lawn right to the back. There's a chain link fence that surrounds the property. Associated with the reconstruction of the house, we'll be raising the house up so that it's above the FEMA elevation of 16 feet. And in order to do that, the proposal is to bring in fill and grade around the house as shown here in the proposed contours with a foundation that will be constructed as a crawl space foundation, a conventional foundation in this to house the house. Mike Solomando is also here, the builder for the project. He has had a chance to speak with the building inspector today and go over the details of building in the flood zone, and if we can get into it further if we need to, but the building inspector was supportive of this and in agreement of that methodology. So to go over it again, what we're looking to do is reconstruct a single-family home here. It is existing within the buffer zone and within the coastal flood zone. Again, the entire site is developed at the back. As you'll see, it's a maintained lawn right to the edge. As I said, there is work partially within the 50 and within the 100-foot buffer to the BVW and within the floodplain. Certainly take any questions you might have.
Bill?
Can we skip me and come back? I need to absorb this. Please, and thank you.
Richard?
I may need to come back as well, but just making sure I understand, the house that is there now is going to be raised?
Correct. Removed.
That's the brown, right?
That's the brown?
Yeah.
Okay. And a little bit of the house extends into the 50-foot buffer. There is no way that can be avoided?
Right. The reason for the moving of the house back from where it is now is that in order to comply with the zoning setbacks, the house is located in this region. I'll let Sean provide a little more detail on that.
Yeah, one of the things, it is an undersized lot. It's a 9,000 square foot lot, as said. So requires 10,000. So in speaking with the building inspector, he said in order to comply with zoning, even though the existing house is way up on the road, he wanted it back to comply with that front setback. So to do that, that back little piece, the stuff, the bump outs in the back of that house are decks, so they're on sonotubes, but it's that little piece. But to comply with zoning, that's why that's like that.
Okay, and in the front, in the current house, the front of the house is within what zone?
This is the 100-foot buffer
Okay, that's the
zone
100.
here.
So you're going from invasion of the 100 to some invasion of the 50. I just want to make sure I understand it
Right.
more than
Because
anything.
The existing house footprint comes around like this.
Yep. No, I understand.
Like this, right?
Okay, all right.
And that front little L shape is a walkway. That's not part of that. The orange L on the front, that's a walkway to get down.
Well, that's
And what
fine.
kind of foundation was under the brown house?
It's a concrete block.
Did I understand that you said the foundation is going to be a standard closed foundation?
Yes, it's standard concrete foundation.
If you start playing that card, it's like, okay, use your...
Land subject to coastal storm flowage, so in order to try and meet FEMA and have this not be within the flood zone and avoid paying flood insurance, the lowest adjacent grade is proposed to be above. We did it for the 16 because we know the maps are about to be approved and changed. And I also know the town's very involved with the CRS program. You guys are one of the beneficiaries of the hard work you do for the 15% reduction. But this is another way of getting a house on a lot that's been in the family for a long time, and hopefully they're not going to have to pay flood insurance.
No, I understand that.
That's why we went to the building inspector today to just make sure. I've done this in a few other towns, but just wanted to make sure that he was okay with it too, being the person that approves it. But it's a standard concrete foundation with a crawl space under it. It's not a basement. But
Right.
the fact that the ground outside is above that flood elevation means that the house would be out of the flood.
Got it. Thank
So
you.
you don't have to have the
So-
blowout panels.
So you're
Right.
saying by adding the fill to that lot, it takes it out of the floodplain?
It would take that house out, yes. We would need a letter of map revision after the fact, when it's built. But yeah, that would be the outcome.
What's the FEMA flood zone elevation with the new map?
It's proposed to go to 50.
Paul?
What's, is the setback 30 here that's required, or I'm not seeing it?
Front yard setback is 30, yes. There's a small little table.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hard to read.
Oh, yeah, I see it on the right.
Small. There-
Yeah.
We crammed it on 11, 8.5 by 11.
Can we go over that again?
Yeah.
They're theoretically in the flood zone now, and they bring in fill and they take it out of the flood zone? Is that, I've never heard of that.
It's about the elevation of the house.
Yeah.
So-
Well, no, but,
And they're gonna grade, yeah.
go ahead.
If I may, when you do an elevation certificate for FEMA, the thing that decides whether you're in the flood or whether you're paying flood insurance, a few of the magic numbers, one of the most important is what they call the lowest adjacent grade. It's the ground where it touches any point in the house, including decks or attached stairs. And if that lowest adjacent grade is higher than the base flood elevation, you can then send that to FEMA and ask for a letter of map amendment, and they will send you an actual letter that says that house is out of the flood zone and does not need to pay flood insurance.
But you're adding fill to make that happen?
Yes.
How can that be allowed?
Because it's a land subject to coastal storm flowage where there's no performance standard and you are allowed to.
Right.
This is one of.
So it's not a
you couldn't do
protected
that
area
if you
that they're
were-
doing it.
Right.
If you were gonna do this on like a pond or a river and put the fill around it, you would have to find another place to compensate and cut that same volume. That's not a performance standard for the land subject to coastal storm flowage because it's the ocean. And no matter what you do on this 9,000 square foot lot, you're not gonna raise the ocean
Right.
enough to impact anyone.
The volume's unlimited, yeah.
Right.
Now I get it.
Paul, do you have any other questions?
No.
Lisa?
I just don't like anything in the 50. You're not supposed to have anything in the 50. So I object to that.
Most of this project is, though, between 50 and 100. Am I correct? I'm having a hard time reading the map a little bit, but the only thing that looks like is within the 50 is part of the rear of the house and the 2 proposed decks. Is that correct?
And the filling.
And the fill.
And decks would be on sonotubes so that it would have a moderated impact.
Right, the area now is 100% maintained lawn. The area that will be filled around will be restored as lawn, and the occupation of the decks over the lawn will be elevated, on sonotubes. I did include in the notice of intent in the narrative that if the commission feels that mitigation is necessary for that occupation in the 50-foot buffer, that we would prepare and submit a mitigation buffer proposal, something that could restore some vegetation to create a buffer strip where there is no buffer in there now, it's just lawn. If that's something that...
Could you show on this map where the fill's going?
Sure,
Please.
it's this area here.
The red lines.
Red, it's the elevations on the red.
These are the proposed contours so that the filling would start in that region and come up.
And because it's not a protected area, you could do that.
It is a protected area in the sense that we're in the buffer zone.
Right.
And we're in land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Yeah.
Land subject to coastal storm flow, there's 2 types of land subject to flooding. We have the bordering land subject to flooding associated with an inland waterway, where Sean described that if we were to do that, that is acceptable as long as we compensate.
Yep.
But because land subject to coastal storm flowage, we don't have that performance standard, so it's not required. So it does meet, there are no performance standards for land subject to coastal storm flowage. It's a definition in the regulations.
Because the ocean has unlimited volume, right, so putting some fill around the house is not gonna
I understand that.
affect
But they're
the
still
level.
bringing in fill into the 50.
Right.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a different question, though. than-
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a 2-part, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What volume of fill are you talking about?
I didn't do a calculation on that volume. As Brad said, I mean, it is filled, but it's maintained lawn today, and it's proposed to be maintained lawn after the fact. It's just at a different grade.
Right, and if you look at the grade of the lot where the house is, it's probably
It's like
12 to 14.
14, and they
Right.
have to bring it up
Thing.
to 16.
Yeah.
Is there any other way to stabilize the fill that you're bringing in other than grass? I mean, at least within the 50. I mean, I don't know if anybody wants any native species or anything like that in that area to stabilize it rather than grass. That's just a question.
Can we get,
Yeah,
can we
gonna
get
get
Pat's?
that,
Yeah.
Well, Pat, why don't you weigh in on some of this?
Okay, I know Sean hasn't done a lot of business with it, but we usually start off with a full set of plans, and with these small plans, very hard to read, so we require full-size plans to be sent in as part of a notice of intent. Couple other things, I mean, it is changing the amount of impervious in the buffer zone. Right now, it's lawn, and it's gonna be a structure. But I think the main thing is bringing in the amount of fill. It's true, the land subject to coastal storm flowage, there's no performance standards, but the town has a stormwater bylaw, and this certainly would trigger the stormwater bylaw, because you don't want to impact neighbors, and bringing in fill to get out of the flood zone, that's a new one on me. I haven't seen that in the town since I've been here. I'd want to run that by somebody, but you definitely would have to go through a stormwater permit application for this.
That's fine, we can file one after conservation. I did speak with Greg DeCesar about this, and he did speak with Jim Mahala, because Greg was the DEP reviewer that issued the file number, and he did speak with Jim Mahala, and that is acceptable as far as bringing in fill.
To get you above flood elevation.
Correct.
No, we certainly want people to be above flood elevation. We're not against that, it's just that, I don't know
As long
if
as you
anybody
deal with the
else-
stormwater.
Yes, that's,
Right.
right. But, so this would be similar to getting a Loma. As part of this whole process, you'd be doing, interesting.
I've done it in a few towns, and
Okay.
it's worked well. It's one of those things where zoning a lot of times tells you need, not only FEMA tells you need your finished floor above flood elevation. A lot of towns will tell you zoning, you need your finished floor even higher
Yeah.
above flood elevation, and by the time you're done, you're looking at a wall of concrete. And if you're on the coast, you have the ability to do this and maybe put some plantings around it. People aren't driving by going, oh, wow, look at that thing. You know, it softens it and makes it look a little better. And like you guys, certainly you can plant the slopes and do some stuff.
So, you got any other,
No, I mean, I'd love to hear Jim Mahala,
Yeah.
his take on this.
do you have a plan that shows the houses that are adjacent to this property on either side?
Don't have a plan other than the.
My question is the setback of the other houses. Your rationale for moving this house back is because you're saying that by zoning, it has to be back 30 feet. But Scituate also has a rule that says that you can be as close as the homes on either side. I believe it's
Like average setback, yeah.
of 125 feet on either side. And I believe all those houses all sit fairly close to the street, so there may not be a need to move that house back.
Well, the old house looks like it's 7 feet
to him if he wants
from
to
the
see it.
property line
Yeah,
on the bottom.
that was from a conversation with the building inspector that told us to put it back 30. I don't know.
He wouldn't tell you to just put the house back 30 feet unless you had a reason for that. If you look at the town bylaw, you're a surveyor. Or an engineer.
Yeah.
So if you read our laws, it says that you can be as close to the road as the abutting homes. I believe it's within 125 feet in either direction. And if memory serves me correctly, houses on 10th Ave are all relatively close to the street. So there may not be, what we want to do is keep you out of the 50-foot buffer zone. So the biggest question, I think, from this commission is that the house be out of the 50. And if there's not a reason to keep it, to move it back, that would easily solve your problem.
Yeah, certainly.
Okay.
We can certainly reread it and revisit it.
If you would, on that piece. I mean, we're all for getting the homes elevated and getting them out of harm's way. I think, to Pat's point, I think he would like to have that discussion about the fill. It's a new one, and I'm not saying that you're wrong, and I'm sure that Brad or you can figure out how to stabilize that. You know, obviously, we're concerned about a stormwater piece as well. You're going to create a fairly steep slope towards your neighbor on the right. I'm not so sure that maybe a swale or something at the base of that isn't going to be required.
Now, these are on either side of the plan, I'm assuming these are the property lines for the property. So that the fill on the right side actually goes, it looks like it goes down right to the property line of the house next door.
It does.
And I don't know how much forward the house next door is from the house that you guys are proposing to build.
It is forward it's forward of the proposed house. It's more in line with the existing.
Can you show me which one that is again? 'Cause thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is the house here, this proposed room.
Oh, okay.
Between the neighbors. There's a little bit of an open space on this end. And there's this house.
So where the fill's gonna come down, that looks like it's coming to the property line, is this on this end?
Yes, I believe so.
What's the distance from that side of the house to the property line?
This says 7.
The existing house now is 7 feet. And that's,
There the property is,
I
yeah.
have to get a scale
That's
out.
all of this.
Yeah, the distance, I don't, we have to do that. I don't know.
Okay. Can I see that? Sure.
Minimum of 8, anyway.
Yeah.
8 to 10, probably.
I believe it's 8 on the left and it's 10 on the right. from
Okay.
memory. But that's from my memory.
And this square foot of the new house, is this the same footprint
I
as
don't
the
think so.
old one?
It's not the same footprint.
I don't even think that that's a zoning. I don't even think you have to go before zoning. I think it's a simple matter of you getting the information on the houses on either side.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'll have to read it.
and do that average.
Like I said, we went to the building inspector, figured he was the zoning enforcement, and that's what he
Well,
told us.
it's a new position,
Okay.
and some things have moved around there, but,
Look at it, certainly.
yeah,
If you could do that, would be more than happy to.
it would be the thing that, we try to keep everything out of the 50. We certainly appreciate what they're trying to do. I think the foundation stuff can all be compliant. Working with the full lawn there, that could easily be worked out, maybe if even any planting's required, or if it's just revegetated and stabilized, that whole piece could work.
Certainly look at it, definitely.
But, and if some fill is required or grading to be within the 50, as Brad mentioned, he can do some planting to mitigate that. But I would take a look at that right side as that impacts the abutter on the right.
Certainly.
Yeah, I'd like to see a stormwater permit application before we close and issue an order of conditions on this.
So like Frank said, they're going to have to revisit, because they can probably, based on the abutting setbacks, they probably don't have to go back 30 feet.
Right. So we need to continue this.
Right. Yes. Yes. Hi, Mr. Schindler would like
Sure.
to speak.
I'm sorry, just state your name and address.
Jerry Schindler.
Hi, Jim.
One of the things that we're trying to do is, when you drive down the street, you're all familiar with it, is try to avoid cosmetic nightmare. And my wife and her family have lived there since the 50s. And what you run into is, putting in a bunker, on a residential street, and trying to avoid the bunker loads, and you cosmetically, like, for the neighbors that are down there, with the family group, like I said, going back to the 50s. So, with the sloping hill and you plant the proper vegetation on top, it has a wonderful look to the street. Instead of that, World War II, bunker look.
Sure.
We're trying to avoid that. When we talk to all the neighbors, my wife and her brothers have talked to the neighbors that are all down there still.
And I got some input from the neighbors that was positive, so, and I'm certainly familiar with the family as well. It's just that we have a rule for the Conservation Commission to keep development out of the 50-foot buffer zone. And if there's no alternative to that, that's understandable. We also want to see people elevate their home and get it out of harm's way and improve the property. That's not an issue. But what your engineer stated at this meeting was that the reason for having to move this house back was because it was not allowed. And I don't believe that's true. So I think it's something that at least needs, if the building inspector comes back or someone comes back and says, no, that's not right, or, where the house has to be 30 feet back, then we'll have to discuss that. And I think maybe architecturally or with some changes, whether it's a garage under or some other way that you can come up with to deal with that piece. We can certainly work with you. We're more than happy to do that. But time and time again, we do not allow people to go within the 50-foot buffer if it's possible. And there are exceptions to that. You have a lawn there. There's other things that can be done. But we need to look at that, and then we need to look at how, when you fill your property, that it doesn't adversely affect your neighbor. And I think you can appreciate that. Is there anything, how much time do you think that you'd need to revise those plans? We had a meeting when, 2 weeks?
Yes, October 5th.
And we'd need to get stuff,
How fast do you need it before that meeting?
If it's a stormwater permit, we'd have to have it reviewed by a peer review engineer.
Right.
And we're not sure the date of the following meeting after that, because it's town meeting night, and we have to switch.
Carol had proposed from the 19th to the 26th in the notes here.
Would that'd be 3 weeks after the 5th?
Yes. Yeah, 21 days.
Is there an opportunity to continue in 2 weeks and then follow it up behind with a stormwater permit separate so that they can get their order conditions and start planning from there?
I think to get an order of conditions, you want to take care of all the stormwater impacts. I mean, there's resource areas that could be impacted too, so I don't think we'd be assured that you could, satisfy an order to not impact resource areas with all that fill coming on to the site.
Right, but you could come to another hearing, let's say you talk to building and you move the building stum and stuff, you could come to another hearing
You could
with
be
that,
making
and then
progress.
continue it, right,
Yep.
making progress while you're working on the
I mean, we're fine to
stormwater.
continue it for 2 weeks and try to work with you from there. If we can resolve the issue of the setback, certainly, and get some more feedback and keep the ball rolling, so that maybe the meeting after that, and maybe we can even, if we find that everything works out, we can, at the next meeting, we could say, well, we'll have orders or something, how to helpfully expedite that, if that would help.
I think that makes sense. And if for some reason we had a difficulty and couldn't make it for the 5th, we just request a continuance.
Right,
So
exactly.
there's no harm.
Would that work?
Yes.
Now, Pat, would a full set of plans have to be at this meeting?
Yeah, full-size plans would be.
Okay.
These are full-size plans,
So
it's
one
just,
inch
you can do
equals
it at
20.
a different scale if you'd like.
That'd be,
Yeah.
Right, and there's no foundation plan.
If the 1 inch is 20, if this is a 1 inch is 20 scale plan, it's just a small lot, he was able to fit it on an 8.5 by 11.
sure. Do you need any, what else do you want to have?
No, I think that'd be good. We can get,
I'm not,
You want a
so
foundation
1 inch
plan,
equals
huh?
10? I mean,
What's that?
You want a foundation plan?
Well, we usually do. Yeah.
So, Pat, do you want a foundation plan?
Yeah.
I mean,
we need to
we
know.
have the details are
Yeah.
on
Yeah,
there.
but if
just
it's not
as-
a- if it's not a
more
flood-
ease of readability is
If this
what-
is not going to be a flood-compliant foundation, then technically, if it works out that it's out of it, we don't really typically get a foundation plan for a home that's out of that area. Our
Okay.
concern is the buffer zone, and then the filling piece.
Yeah, if it's out of the,
So if it gets moved forward, out of
Well,
the
that's-
50-foot,
it's still going to be in the
Hopefully, they can
100,
get
but
most of
hopefully it'll be out
most
of
of
the
the
50.
disturbance out of the 50. If there's some filling that's in the
Yep.
50, but the structure's out of the
They're
50,
gonna
we've conditioned those sort of
increase
things
that footprint a
before.
lot in the
As
100.
long as they, maybe there's some planting or mitigation that would work.
Can we also know how much fill would be going in?
I guess that's.
Well, that'll be
wouldn't be
part of the
that hard to-
stormwater, right?
Yep.
At least the flow.
Okay. So are we looking at continued to the 5th?
That's our next meeting?
Yes.
Motion
Yeah.
to
What
continue
time,
this
where are our times for the 5th, please?
We could do 6:40? 6:45?
6:40? You've committed a cardinal sin.
What did I do?
You wrote in that book with a pen.
Motion to continue this to the 5th of October at 6:45.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna get beaten.
Pocari, 44 Atlantic Drive. On September 21st, 2016, at 7 PM, the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, regarding the application of John C. and Leslie F. Pocari to reconstruct a retaining wall destroyed by a coastal storm on property located at 44 Atlantic Drive, Hummerock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, John.
Hello, John, you have the abutter cards there, so, okay.
Thank you. How you doing? Good, man. Good.
picture of foundation that got put, or the seawall that got blown through.
Oh, here, okay, yeah.
Welcome back.
Wait, I do.
Yeah, it's in the back.
I have just two items I just wanted to change on the plan. And I'd like to show you before you get going, so there's no mistake. One of them is on the existing wall. In Queen, going across. It's going to be a foot higher than the wall was before. It'll match my abutter to the south. Show you, Frank.
Will it match your butter to the north?
South. He's higher. What I found out over the years, that 1 foot made a big difference when the water came.
Oh, yeah.
My neighbor to the south is a foot higher. Nothing. I got slammed every time. So I'm just going to extend it from his wall straight across.
Okay.
So this has to go to state, right?
So
Pat?
filed.
Yeah. Goes to state,
Yes.
right, yeah.
Yeah, this is fine.
Yeah, obvious, needs to get prepared.
I'm in between two sidewalks.
Oh, wait, well.
The one north of John was replaced a couple of years ago.
Right.
On the corner. Well, you know that, 'cause you
Before
were
that,
the
and before that,
Yeah.
and the one north of that is the open space.
Yes.
Right.
CUF.
Yes.
Right.
Which is getting smaller and smaller. It's getting wider.
It's really diminishing.
So is the beach.
We're working on that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of material up there, just for the tape.
So what are we doing?
The engineer was clean, so
What are we doing, Frank?
John, when did this wall fail? Was it 2015, 2013?
when we went down,
Yeah,
February
15?
15, yeah. And the only reason it went down because
No, I'm good.
when we put the seawall up originally, my father, in the early 50s, there was no houses on either side of us. Nothing. So the wall went about 5 feet from the property line and went sideways, you know, to further water around the house. Well, when the next guy built his house, he went to the property line, then hooked onto the wall, so there was a corner in there. That's why the wall fell over.
I'm good.
I'm fine with it now.
Good, good. Lisa?
All good?
Matt?
Fine.
Pat, what are your thoughts?
John, is on the support for the wall, is there riprap in the front, on the ocean side? Riprap stones to help support the wall, or something behind the wall?
File for that one after.
There's no
Well, no,
riprap
just
there.
trying
I
to,
don't know if it'll work in between two walls. I don't,
yeah, I mean, we're just trying to make sure that it doesn't fail, too, for your benefit. I
it's
mean,
gonna fail sooner or later.
yeah, many of the walls, well, many of the walls we're getting designed now with, you know, with the boulders in the front.
Yeah.
And at an angle, some kind of a splash thing. And the other questions I have around like pinning to walls on either side and having the patio, is your patio planned to come out to the wall again? Because, you know, we're looking at new designs where there's an ability to have the wave break over the wall onto boulders or something else, not onto a patio and then shoot through your house and onto the neighbor's property.
Well, there's no patio on this. This is just backfill.
So it's going to be backfilled with sand, cobble?
Right.
Okay, so nothing comes up to
House
the
is on
wall?
pilings.
Right.
And the only thing they're gonna put in there is 3 footings for the porch.
Okay, so there'll be nothing coming, because originally you had You had a patio coming out there, didn't you?
That's before I raised the house.
Okay.
That was like a launching pad. A lot of-
Yep.
And the house went like 4 times.
And it's privately owned wall right from the beginning.
Yeah. The wall, it would have still been there if that corner wasn't there, because that's where it broke, on the south corner. And that went, took all the wall with it.
Okay. So the new wall to the north of you, the guy that just replaced it.
Yes, I had owned that lot, and I had poured that wall.
Right.
I sold it to him, and he went from there on. It was up to him to do whatever. Now, he made it so his patio, he steps out, he's got a poured concrete patio, which already is under mine, because I backfilled from underneath it. And right to the seawall. Now, the water still, he didn't rectify anything, hits the seawall, comes over, slides up, peels the wood off the house, because it's only that, the shingles are that high off the patio, peels everything off every year. Because I had the problem when I owned the house. And I explained to him, I says, you know, I know you don't want to go higher, but sooner or later, he's not on pilings, he's got
Right.
full concrete foundation.
And his wall comes to the property line, and you're gonna join your wall to his.
Yeah, he didn't want me to hook onto it. He don't want me to drill and hook onto his wall. It's fine. So hopefully I'll make a small return on it.
And your structural engineer is saying that this is the best design for.
Can't do much in between, 50, 49 feet wide.
I don't know, you guys have more experience with.
But it just,
Well, he's repairing and maintaining his existing wall, yeah.
but most of the walls that we see as seawalls have a little bit more design than just a vertical surface.
Right.
Or what we've asked for in a lot of these is that stones or something be placed in front of these to soften.
Yeah, the scouring.
Right.
That's why it falls.
Three boulders in front after the wall.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
That helps the life of your wall, because then the water doesn't scour as much. It
They
gets,
moved a lot of stone last year, off of CD web.
What they're talking about are big.
boulders,
Big
boulders,
The big
yeah,
brick.
not cobble, yeah.
Yeah. I know the kid moved the stuff up the beach, he had it, he hauled it all the way up the beach.
Jay Gary?
A lot of stone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hey, one step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, is this something we should have a conversation with your engineer about too, or?
It's just it's not a typical design that we see
Right.
for,
And a collapse will impact the neighbor
and
too.
the engineer has stamped it,
Yeah, right.
but, and he shows a wide footing and then fill behind it and connections on the top. But typically, we've been looking for, in addition to a vertical wall, some sort of material to soften that so it's not creating that scour.
Right, and if it collapses and you're pinned to your abutting neighbor's property.
Well, it's not gonna be.
That town seawall that runs all the way up to the center of the town, the big thick one.
Yeah.
Growing up as a kid, when it was down maybe 15, 20 feet, they had vertical poured concrete. coming
Yeah,
up
buttresses.
All the way up.
Right.
So if the stuff washed out, that's federal money. That's out of it, and it's that thick.
That's right. The one from Newell Street
And
downtown.
most of it's buried and the water goes right over it now, yeah.
Can we do this, then condition the boulders? Or what?
Well, we're not an engineering firm, I don't know.
I thought, well, we have engineering plans, right? We have stamped engineering plans.
Right, and they're not showing the boulders at this point.
I can always, let me put the wall in first, and then
Yeah. What's your time frame?
there isn't any, my kid lives there year-round.
I mean, do we need more information on this before we close, or?
When would you like to have it done?
I'm just wondering if,
I'd like to get it done
Just-
before,
Do you see the structurals in there, Frank? Do you have?
What else would you
Yeah.
like to see?
Is this the only house in this area that
Typically, we
would
would
have riprap in front of the seawall?
That's what I'm wondering, is
Oh,
it,
well, I can see some in the,
I can see
down to the
I can
right.
see some in the
There's a ways
distance.
down there.
Yeah.
Adjacent.
This
This,
replaced it, they
this is,
backfilled it.
this is north. You'll find
Yeah,
riprap,
I can see
but
it there.
along this strip here, there isn't riprap.
No, in that area, there's no riprap.
Okay.
From Seaview down, there's no riprap.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. going
okay, I mean, you're more familiar with it than I
There's
am.
no riprap in that area.
178.
South of where Lisa
Yeah.
It
is.
starts, matter of fact, it started Seaview going north. There's riprap.
That's
there.
right.
Those houses have been there since I was a kid, and they, no damage. These are the first 5 houses that got riprap out there. They're good. We survived a lot.
What's going on is there a patio going back, or is it just stone?
Just stop.
No, out along Hardings.
All right, okay.
Matter of fact, the porch is way up. There's a garage under.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this? So it's essentially replacing the wall that, but with a better footing and rebar and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, the pinning to the next door neighbor's wall is the thing that I'm.
I thought we
wondering.
weren't pinning it to the neighbor's wall. Is it gonna be pinned to
Well,
the
that-
neighbor's
yeah, and
wall?
that's-
To the south one.
Oh, it is.
Just
Yeah,
to the
okay.
south, not to the north.
Then when the north one falls down, you can say, "Good thing I wasn't pinned to you."
Hope we don't have any.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to think about placing additional stones in the front of it. I think you're gonna go a long way to have your wall last longer, but if we don't have it on either side, and this is replacing what's existing,
Yeah, I might run into a little problem.
You mean with the neighbors?
I mean, we started over most things. I don't know. I get along good with everybody. I think you'd have to.
Well, if it doesn't work, when this one falls down, you can put boulders on the next one.
God, you guys are depressing.
Well, no, I mean, that's what Frank's saying. It's to protect the wall and protect the footing and keep it from scouring, but
Well, if
you don't have to do it. You have a right to maintain your wall, and we've allowed people to do that, replace it and maintain it.
How, I mean, to the north on Seaview where you indicated that they haven't had any problems up
The
there.
first house is on pilings. Their material is starting to wash away.
Okay.
No boulders. Next house on, for the next maybe 5 or 6, have reinforced and fixed the boulder walls.
Okay, and they haven't had any trouble up there? Even
First 2 haven't, but there's 2 ranches there that's been there since 1949. Never had a problem.
There's a bunch there, Lisa, who didn't have a
No one's in
problem
it.
until they had a
Nothing happens to
problem.
that.
No, it doesn't, you're right.
It was all good until they all
Frank, do you wanna-
collapsed.
I want to ask Pat a question. Obviously, there's other walls here, and he doesn't want to be the only person with a hole in the wall. So we've kind of worked with folks before that they can close these openings so that the water's just not going through there. I guess maybe it's a little different scenario, but we also have a situation at the other end of Humrock where we're going to be looking for someone to remove walls that have been damaged. Is there a difference here that,
Well, DEP allows riprap or walls to be replaced if you lose them.
okay,
Yeah, and there was a time where if you went up on pines, you had to remove your wall, and that was the end of it.
right,
But they've changed their stance, and we've kind of followed along with that if you have one.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
But I think, should we get some kind of an okay from your abutter that this is good with him to...
Well, he gave you a butter cards, right? I mean, everybody's been notified.
Yeah, maybe they didn't realize who was getting
Well,
into
but
their property.
that's all in their purview. He came in, he did the right thing, he notified him. He shouldn't be held up, I don't think.
No, I think that's...
It's not entirely on your property if you're pinning to the
But
property.
we're not into property issues, we're approving methodology.
Right,
We're not approving who owns the property.
I mean, if you think that's important, then we could just condition this, provided that Mr. Bukhari gives us a letter from his neighbor that he's aware that this is being pinned to the wall.
That sound
Do
reasonable?
you do that?
Do what now?
So, we could condition your project.
Yeah.
But one of the conditions will be that we receive a letter from your neighbor that he acknowledges that you are attaching your wall to his.
On the south side?
On the south side.
On the south side,
Yeah, through Charlie.
okay?
Yeah.
So you can get a letter from him? All right. And you're not going to put any pinning on the other side? Okay.
Do we have any jurisdiction to actually do that?
Not really, but we're making it up.
Well, I think if someone shows, here's the thing, if you show that you're doing work that's not on your property, then technically that other person should be part of the NOI.
Okay, well, if he sent, my only point was if he sent the abutter
Is that,
notices.
am I,
Right, no, you're correct.
But he's all right with it,
We had
so...
someone putting a fence in the middle of a road that's deeded to all the abutters, and we were told that
was
who
on
owns
their
that property doesn't, we're not concerned with that. So it's really not consistent.
Well, it was on her property.
Well, no, it wasn't. It was in the middle of the street.
It was a paper street.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, but this is clearly doing some work. It's minor in nature. It's doweling into that other wall, but theoretically, that work is going on another piece of property. So I think it's not unreasonable to just get an acknowledgement from that abutter that that work is happening on their property.
Well, in theory, wouldn't they have to go on both abutters, north and south property, to be able to put this up?
What we're saying, Lisa, is that, and he's showing that on the north side, that they're actually drilling into that wall and putting...
South side.
No, south side.
Right, south side.
South side.
One of those sides.
So is there going to be a gap between the north house?
I think he's
or
pouring up
just
against
not-
it, it's just not...
Is that gonna?
Just not...
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
you want to make a motion? Because I'm really
We're
confused.
going to give a negative 3, right? What do we do on this?
This isn't
There's a-
notice of intent, just so we have a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Motion to close
And nobody else, we're all set?
with the standing conditions.
With the notification, written notification from
Well,
your neighbor
that's-
to the south.
Yeah,
That would be part of
that'll be part of the orders.
Yep, second.
So a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye. That's a good thing, John.
All right, that's a good start. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Welcome, good luck.
Have a good day.
All right, who have we got in the room here that would like to go home?
Yeah, anything left over from orders or conditions? We have 2 informals, and then we have a, what do you have for?
8:40.
The shop, C7.
Oh, okay. Certificate, okay.
I'm just looking to click.
So we have 2 informals. Mr. Bajorkan was the first informal.
Okay.
And then we have somebody here from the Peggotty Beach. 21 Peggotty Beach would be a 1-minute discussion, if that would...
Okay.
Want me to sneak
Sure.
that in? Okay. Up on administrative items, 21 Peggotty Beach, this is Mr. Hoffler's property, and they have an order of conditions from us. They're outside of the 10-foot contour line, so they don't trigger the town's floodplain bylaw. They've started clearing the lot. They have limit of work, and they have erosion controls in, and they've cleared the vegetation. They may want to revise the plan. I said they'd have to come back in for a hearing. But at this point, we were concerned that the soils in there be clean fill. We don't want bad fill left in place. And Mr. Morse said that they've done some looking at the soils, but we may want to be sure that the soils are clean. in this case. It came from the harbor, Scituate Harbor,
So you're
truckloads.
talking about contaminants and not the type of soil?
Well, there's going to be some wetland replication on that site, and then there's going to be a house put on it, so we want to make sure it's not being put on bad soil. So I don't know the best way do we go about that, how do we require and who does it, but I think that was a discussion we wanted to have with them. So-
Okay.
So I just put it on there as something we'd talk about, and then there's somebody from the property representing Mr. Hoffler that may have something to add.
Sure. Thank you. Brad White, 149 Old Main, Marshfield Hills. I represent Mr. Hoffler on the sales of real estate. And all sounds good. The lot's been cleared. It's been 15 or 20 years to get this to where it is, and he'll be filing for his building permit when they get the plans in line. Mr. Morse dug, I think, 3 test pits and found that the soil that's there, I'm not a soil expert by any means, but the contaminants weren't there. They had some bricks and some bottles and things like that, I think, were found. So that's what I know. And then I had a question because some soil was removed and gone somewhere, and I just want to make sure people know that Mr. Hoffler had no idea where the soil was going, didn't have any compensation for selling soil or any type of benefit. So that was all news to him, and my phone was picking up the hook when I was out whale watching one day saying, well, what's going on? And I didn't know, but just want to make sure folks know that Mr. Hoffler's oral agreement with the landscaper was to clear, clean, remove, and that's what he knew. So I hope that sheds some light.
Right, so I think the biggest concern is what type of testing results do we want on the soil that's remaining in place? You know, what do we, I mean, Greg's done some pits, they found bricks, it's Boston Harbor fill, so what would make us comfortable with this being okay?
Where did the fill come from?
Boston Harbor, there was a demo job, they dumped it in the harbor, it was dredged out of there, and it was brought to the site based on the okay from a commission a long time ago, so it filled the site. This was the fill that's in the wetland.
How long ago was this?
CBS,
A long
was
time
that
ago.
CBS building?
It was, I think it was down by the harbor.
Jack Conway's building.
Yeah, it was down in the harbor.
Conway building.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it came a long way
No,
from
not
Boston.
It's Scituate.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
it's Boston.
Oh, sorry.
It didn't come
Jack Conway's building.
What's Greg doing with the soil samples that he dug? Yeah, oh, he just dug the samples, and he's waiting for us to...
I brought it up and said, you know, we want to make sure it's good source.
Well, if it came from Scituate, it must be perfectly
Yeah,
clean.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I think we want something written up by somebody who knows soils that can say, yeah, it's good, no, it's good, not good. Did you go deep enough? Did you do enough samples around the site? I think it's up to us to make sure that if we're going to allow it to stay in place, you know, that it's okay.
Petroleum is the only thing that I could think of that would be in there. I don't know.
What would be?
The PCB?
Yeah.
CBs,
No.
I don't know about that, but in Scituate Harbor, I would think petroleum.
Well, it's not even the harbor. This was a building that was burned, and then if we're talking about the same place.
Okay, so it's not from the harbor, but someone said it
No,
was
no,
from
no,
the
no.
harbor, but they meant
This
the
is
harbor.
Scituate
area.
Harbor,
Okay.
there was a couple of buildings that burned, and then they cleaned those up, and some of that fill, when they built the new building, which, I mean, I'm relying on what Steve's telling me here, that this came from the foundation from the new Conway building.
They actually asked Vinnie's permission to be able to move some of the fill from the Jack Conway building over to this particular site.
Okay.
So do you have some,
It wasn't wetlands, it wasn't anything
Yeah.
like that, it was up in the harbor, right on Front Street.
did you have some kind of standard testing that we could ask for? I mean, some kind of
It's
basic...
not our expertise, but
baseline?
yeah,
No.
we could look into that.
Yeah, I mean, do we have some kind of baseline?
Who should do it and...
Yeah,
I'm seeing Greg in the morning. I'd be happy to convey that to him. And
yeah, I'm sure he knows
to
somebody.
answer your question, it was about, I think, 20, 25 years ago that fill went in.
Right. Okay. Yeah, if we could come up with something, some sort of analysis that wouldn't be extreme, I think that'd be fine.
You can take a look at it on the next street. There's a whole pile of it that's been placed there.
Yeah.
So that's on for our next hearing.
Some stuff's just bound to circle around, isn't it?
Okay, so
That's not on tonight.
we're good?
No. Yeah, the other one.
All right, so what, Steve's next?
Okay. All right, why don't we see if we can get a little bit more
We'll get in touch
information.
with Greg.
Okay, and I'll speak with him tomorrow. And,
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. So I just wanted to explain
Yep.
that, well, because Mr. Hoffman couldn't be here. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brett.
Steve?
Yes, and this is not for a vote, this is an informal to get some advice, and if it turns out you agree with it, then we could have a revised plan for the next hearing, so.
Just for the record, Steve Bjorklund. I'm here with Dave Vance from Delrin Development. And this is an order of conditions that was issued for 189 Glades Road. You guys knew it as Lot 1 when it came in. Kevin Iro had this permitted for the property owner a number of years ago. There were 2 lots past the gate, and one was on the ocean side, next to Mr. Burek, which had the isolated wetlands in it. This is actually, the construction that's going on now is on the Cohasset Harbor side, so it's looking towards the south. And the foundation is in, and it's modified tremendously from what was originally approved. The footprint that you guys had approved back when it was known as Lot 1 was 4,743 square feet. It was a huge house that they were doing out there. And the gentleman bought the lot. Dave is building his house for him. The new footprint is actually 2,632 square feet. So there's a reduction of 2,111 feet. So it's a much, much smaller house. And I'm going to come forward just to kind of show you this, because I apologize for not having it forward.
Is this the one over to the right as you go in?
No, it's on the left.
It's on the left. So it's on the Cohasset
I don't remember
Harbor
that
side,
one.
but the brown...
Because it wasn't there.
The
Oh.
brown colored in portion is actually what's constructed for a foundation. So it's, again, it's a much, much smaller house than was originally approved out there. And what we're really in for is, when they went for the approval, it was very lengthy hearings, I know, it's a pretty touchy site. But there was a lot of mitigation plantings and stuff that went along with this because the house was so big. And there was a lot of lot disturbance out there. So what we're trying to do is to reduce somewhat some of the plantings that they're going to require. There's 2 areas in front of the house. These 2 small areas here have not been disturbed. That's all native soils in those areas. And originally, they were going to basically clear those areas out and replant that as part of the mitigation plan for, this is the larger, the older foundation. So this is one of the older plans. And what we're looking to do is to try to see if we can eliminate doing plantings in those 2 areas for the amount of reduction that they've done in the foundation, and being over 2,000 feet less. And there's one other issue that we'd like to try and address. There's a rain garden over in this area that was originally designed to handle almost all the stormwater from the site, and the commission had approved that. And obviously, if we have a foundation that's 2,000 feet less, we're not holding as much rain out in the area. And the way the grading works out in the lot, behind the garage that's actually constructed, there's a small area behind the garage that's really not going to be used for anything at all. And what we'd like to try to do is to see if we could put a couple infiltrators behind the garage just to pick up the rainwater on the back roof of the garage. All the rest of it will still go towards the rain garden that was there. So the rain garden will be over-designed for what it's going to actually handle for water. And instead of piping this all the way around the house to get over to the rain garden area, it makes perfect sense to put a couple infiltrators behind there. Again, it's not an area where he's going to be using it at all. If any of you have been out to the site at all, you can go back there and take a look. It's just it's an area that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's going to go over onto that side of the garage. The usable area is off to the west side of the property, over here. And that's what we're trying to do, is find out whether this is actually, whether that change would be considered to be within the scope of the project, because it's less of an impact than was originally approved, or if we have to actually file to do a full amended order of conditions to take out those 2 planting areas. So that's why it's kind of informal now. I think you're accomplishing everything that you want to accomplish as far as protecting the wetlands, and I think the
fact that you ended up with a buyer that wanted a house that was much smaller is certainly beneficial to the environment and to this particular site.
Was the planting area part of the excavation when the project first started?
No, we don't even have the original hay bale line from the original project went all the way around and cleared that out. Our erosion control comes inside of those areas.
Oh, okay.
We're not even, literally our erosion control.
It's still natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
In those two
That
areas.
was my only question. So.
Were you on the board when this?
Yeah, I'm trying to, I think,
Was it a take and a proportional thing?
We're gonna have to look at this.
Yeah.
to
Yeah, because it
figure
isn't
out-
going to be just the square footage of the house. We have to see that, like, the overlay of the new one, the old one, and how the buffer zones and the setbacks, and,
Yeah, and that's on this plan right here.
Okay.
And I'd be glad to meet a commission member or two out there on site to actually show you really what's going on there. Also, the original house that was designed had a circular driveway in front of the house and a driveway going straight in. They're not going to do the circular driveway, so there's less impact as far as the driveway is concerned, less impact as far as the foundation.
Who permitted this first done? You?
Yeah.
So it's a better project, you know, pretty much all around.
I'm just drawing a blank as to why those areas were going to be revegetated, Steve, whether there was some, well, I can't remember if there was some issues in those spots, if they were, Phil, I'd rather take a look and see.
I mean, there's trees in that area
That's
now,
fine, but there
mature
was,
trees
but
and
there's
stuff.
some reason,
They needed the area, I think, to show as much mitigation as they could because of the size of the house.
maybe.
well, it's not because of the size of the house, it's the house in the resource area. Because you wouldn't have mitigation for a giant house outside of the 100-foot.
That's what I mean. I mean, they wanted to build this
Right.
massive house out there.
Right.
So they took all the rest of the area that was outside their 50-foot buffer and tried to plant as much as they could possibly plant in order to be able to get a house that size.
Right.
So all we're saying is the house is much smaller. Can we not do all those plantings?
And there may be a good reason not to disturb an area if it's
Right.
just, if it's
We
natural.
didn't ask if we didn't think it was.
That was the original conversation with Pat when I kept bringing him, when I brought him in a footprint plan, and he's like.
So did it shrink away from the resource area? Is the new house further away?
A little bit. Yeah, it's
Is the
within
whole
the
area
old
resource
foundation.
No.
99%. But, yeah, some of it is further away. There's also a big patio that was in the back of it, and I don't think you're doing that big patio, right?
Not as far back as it.
Is it a flood zone?
No.
What's the zone?
Way up high.
It's up on Rock Ledge.
It's on ledge.
I mean, the original home was 8,500 square feet. That, the order of conditions went to a home that was 8,500 square feet. It was
And how big is this one? Again?
Like 4,000.
like 4,000.
Steve, was there a stormwater permit issued on this? Or
I
is
think
it
the commission,
for
you know
the
what, I don't even want to
stormwater?
say that. At the time, I'm not sure whether the commission was handling the stormwater or the planning board.
But it was.
But we can check into that, but there was a
Bylaws.
stormwater permit issued. That's why they did the rain garden.
Okay.
And the rain garden was designed specifically to handle the runoff from the site.
Yeah, I think that would be my question. Are we changing the stormwater thing? But I don't think we'd need to do a whole new drainage calculation. Maybe have, for stormwater purpose, somebody take a look at the differences between the plans and then look at the size of the mitigation. You know, if that was something that we could look at rather than have them start from scratch, because it is quite a bit of reduction in
Right.
impervious. And
Just
that's-
compare the disturbance
Right.
in the jurisdictional areas and the
But we don't want,
stormwater.
also, we don't want stormwater to go into a place where it's not going to work as well. I
Right.
mean, this has been through the study, so.
To answer your question, I think we're amenable to looking at this and seeing if there was some changes that could be made, given these reductions. But I think we need to make sure that why some of these pieces were done. And it's been so long, quite honestly. I remember site visits there, and I remember Cavanaro with these plans, but it's been too long.
Can
and
we get you guys to come back out? It would be something that you guys.
Well, I think we need to look at the plans, but we're not going to do that tonight.
Right.
So we can look at those with Pat, and then if we think a site visit makes sense to go out and do that, we can. But I also want to look at the orders that we issued and the plan that was submitted and all those pieces.
And it really started with me just saying, you know, him trying to explain to me, why, because when we took our hay bale line and came inside of these areas, and that you can't even walk into them.
No, I know.
So I'm like, well, how am I gonna get out there to plant them? He's like, you gotta plant them. I'm like, well, can we go back and ask him, because I can't walk up.
Sure.
Right.
It's just-
And we'd be glad to take a look at it, but I do think it's already 9 o'clock and we
Oh,
got
no,
some
yeah,
things
yeah.
to do. So we want to take a look at the orders that we issued.
Sure.
the plans that were submitted, just look and see if there was any other pieces that were missing from tonight.
I'll try and get the minutes if I can from Carol, and I'll put the orders of conditions together with the plans and get a package to
Yeah, I mean, at some point, we may want a statement from your engineer too, saying, I've looked at it, and this is what I think will...
Is Caronaro still doing the work on this? No.
Actually, Ross Engineering is doing a lot of the layout stuff out here, but Cavanaro is still involved in the septic system itself because they designed the septic.
Okay.
One or the other, we can certainly, I'll have a conversation with Cavanaro and find out who actually did the stormwater for him, whether it was Brendan or John himself.
Are you reducing septic too? Or are you leaving that the same size?
That's the same size.
Yeah.
It's a very small septic system.
It's a big lot, it's a 3-acre lot.
Sure, yeah, but it's also a pretty sensitive lot.
Oh, yeah.
Very sensitive.
So we could schedule a request to review a revised plan and put that on the agenda, and that's, it's not an amendment, it's not a new order, it's a review, and we'd request some things, so.
Okay.
If that's what you...
And if it's okay with the commission, if Pat does want to have somebody take a look at this for the commission, you know, if they want to look at the stormwater, we'll start with Cavanaro, see what they have to say, and then we'll just carry on a conversation with Pat and kind of...
Yeah, I can meet you out there, Pat, someday.
Okay.
It's quite the lot.
Yeah,
And this is going to be less impact, so that's...
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't ask if we didn't think it was a better situation, so I think it's, you guys will probably be happy with it.
All right.
Less is better.
It's a lot less. Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Greg? Can we do that, Pat, jump to that,
Yeah, we have Greg and Mark, they're both quick.
Okay.
I mean, pretty quick. so. Okay, we have a request for a certificate of compliance for Seaside, and since that order went in the, I don't know, in the 70s, the house has been knocked down, and there was all sorts of stuff, and this was still on the deed. So, whatever the issues were are no longer something we have to be concerned about, so I would recommend...
This is an order from the 70s?
From
1977.
1977.
77, and it followed the deed until now, till the closing, so...
And it has nothing to do with...
And the house is gone now?
Well...
It's the same owners. Since
So it hasn't, yeah.
Okay.
They are selling now, and the buyer's attorney found in the chain of title a certificate of an order of conditions that didn't have a certificate.
And the house is gone now?
Yeah. Well, the other side of the street, the whole rest of the street is gone. This house remains, and
Okay.
but the issues were, they were destroyed in 78 or 91.
Yeah, it's still in 78.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Right, pretty straightforward.
Want to issue an order of...
Yeah,
certificate, yeah.
issue CFC for 57 Seaside, how many numbers is this?
Yeah, a couple of numbers on there, yeah.
57 Seaside, 68 through 58, and 68 through 190, that's a big
No, so
address.
it's 6858 is a DEP number.
Oh, okay.
The order of conditions, that's how old it is, it's 6858. 68190 was other work that they had done that actually does have.
So what,
Right,
so,
okay.
make a
So there was a
motion to
certificate-
have a COC for
57
57 Seaside, right?
Okay.
Second.
So 6890 was one that a certificate was issued?
We need one for 68-58.
Okay, but what I'm asking you is 68-109 was after the...
68-190.
So just to make you feel better, there was another certificate issued after that one that was done, so,
Okay.
okay?
You guys
this
were
is-
little boys when this
Yeah, so,
all happened.
you have a motion and a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good
You had
luck.
a long wait for a short visit. Thank you.
It's better than the alternative.
And then, and what's the other one?
Mark from 27
Mark Hutchinson, 27
Ann
Vinyl Road.
and there's a current order of conditions in place. Mark is proposing a much smaller project, so if you want to, okay. That's the order. This is the approved plan. And this is the structural.
Can, do that again. So, we have approved plans for a new building, and those plans are gonna change. Is that it? Okay.
He's reducing, right? Well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the addition over here.
I had proposed, and it was approved for a 5-foot by 22-foot bump out on the back of the house, and I was looking to extend that another 4 feet instead of 5 feet.
Excuse me.
Well, I still am not sure whether or not I'm going to do that addition to the right of the house. So first, I'm going to start with the pump out off the back.
So we permitted it for 4 and you want to go out 5?
No, it's the other way around.
Other way around. Yeah.
Permitted it to 5 and he wants to go to 4.
Absolutely not.
Well, what is the issue if he wants to do that?
Well, this is a deck.
Right.
Okay, and is the addition replacing a foot of the deck, is that? It's 5 feet, and I want to go another 4 feet beyond the 5. That would go into the deck, and then go another 2 feet.
No, so
to
it's
the deck.
9 feet, not 5 feet.
Right. And it, well, and this too would be
that
closer to
makes
the
sense. Now I
wetland,
got
but is this the?
Where's the 50?
Right here.
A way out.
Way out, yeah.
So why is this jurisdiction?
So it's, well, because it's getting, it's in the 100.
Oh, it is?
It's in the 100.
Oh.
It's in the 100. And this is all lawn.
This is all grass?
Yeah.
So,
Are we just talking about the deck here, or?
No,
No, the addition, he wants to make the addition more.
So the
5
pink,
feet to the-
Yeah, but we're also,
No, that's all done.
no.
He's not sure if he's gonna do that.
right now, there's an
I mean,
existing,
if we talk about one thing, I want to be specific as to what we're talking
Right.
about,
Yeah.
yeah.
so the
So the-
addition has a foundation?
So,
I was going to do sonotubes, pilings.
so the orange, is this it, right
Yeah.
here?
Orange is deck, I'm sorry.
And the pink is the addition. So it's this
Oh,
addition with a
okay.
deck. He wants to make this a little wider and then
Okay.
come out with the
I had
deck
it
a little more.
backwards. Okay. Gotcha.
I'm new to this whole process.
So I don't understand what we're okaying.
Or not.
Or not.
An
Well, he's
expansion.
asking if he can make it bigger
So
in
what
the
it-
100.
Yeah.
so he
Yeah, the
wants to-
deck, but we're not talking about the pink.
No, he's asking about the addition.
So this is
Yes.
gonna, this area
Correct.
here would be
Yes.
an addition to what was already approved. We approved this,
Right.
Right.
okay? So he's asking if he can move that out another 4
Right.
feet. So instead of 5 feet, it's now 9.
Right.
And then the deck would get extended out another 4
Right.
feet.
Or 2 feet.
What- Oh, okay.
So where is the reduction that was just,
I don't think it's a
Well,
reduction.
a reduction was, this is still, this that you approved is still up in the air as to whether or not I'm going to.
But right now, it's
So
conditioned to
right,
build
this is,
it.
Yeah.
right, this is an increase. It's not a reduction. So,
Correct.
but it's in the 100, it's a lawn area.
it's on sonotubes?
Sonotubes. It doesn't trigger another bedroom for septic purposes or anything like that.
That's his problem.
Yeah, that's,
Consider
no.
cow sewer.
It's gonna be a cigar smoking lounge.
Okay. I don't have a problem with
I mean, look at the distance here. Here's the 50. All right?
Yeah.
So can we just amend this? Does he have to,
A revised plan if we want to go with a 2-foot further intrusion
yeah.
on
4 foot further.
Yeah.
Well, 2 in total, distance. We're just looking at distance.
Because he's cutting this, this is only going out 2. So really, the piece that's going to stick out is only going to go 2 feet further towards the well.
It's okay.
Following?
No.
It's late, I get it.
No, there's nothing to do with being late. It's designed now for 5 feet, and he wants to go out 9 feet, so that adds 4.
No.
No. Because the deck is only going to go out 2 more feet.
Right. The orange is the deck, the pink is the...
So he's not pushing the deck all the way out. He's reducing the size of the deck. He's increasing the size of the bedroom, or room, whatever it is. Kitchen. So he's increasing the size of the kitchen a little bit, so.
How many feet is the increase in the kitchen, just so I can write this correctly?
Let's skin it another
4
way.
foot.
He could go out 20 feet and put a full foundation
I
Any-
know, that's not the
any- there's
question. I'm
no-
just asking what it
nothing
is,
that
so I
would
can just
say you couldn't
write
do
it for
that.
So
Carol.
really, this is only going to get 2 foot. At the end of the day, it's
This
only
is
going
coming back.
Right.
I get
Writing
it.
this for Carol.
Okay?
I just wanted to understand what we were doing.
Wait till,
Okay.
wait till,
So it would be
2 feet.
notice of intent, amendment, or revised plan. If it's minor on sonotubes, probably would qualify
I
as
think a revised plan would
well,
be
but
fine.
that's
I-
it's never that easy.
I would think.
Yep.
Okay. Better that you ask now than when it's built and then...
That's why. Thank you guys for taking the time. I'll give you 9 o'clock at night. There you go.
Thanks for waiting around for us.
Here, Pat.
A vote.
For the submittal of a revised plan?
Well, let's see.
What is this
On the
gonna-
agenda-
I
What's it on
would,
the agenda
whatever,
as?
I'd entertain a motion that we would allow Mr. Hutchinson to expand that as shown, provided he gives us a revised plan.
Sounds good.
I second.
What he said.
Yeah.
I second.
I second.
I'm not
Yeah.
supposed to make a motion.
No, so Richard made that
I
motion.
made that motion that we
And I
accept
seconded.
the proposal with the revised plan.
You following this?
Good luck.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. See you, Mike. Oh, okay.
We do need our motion maker back.
All right. Where do you want to go from here, Patrick?
Okay, so we've got the informals done, we've got the notices done, got the requests done. Up the top, Martin, I think, let's see, Penny was out, did some measurement out there, and it's up now to them to follow up with the notice of intent to DEP and to us. So she's still
Where is this?
going to be having a hearing.
What are you talking about? Pat? I'm sorry.
264 Club.
264 Club,
Thank you.
sorry.
I don't, from what Penny had, nah.
We kind of mixed
Yeah,
up
leave it.
last time. We told her she needed
Yeah.
an RDA, but there was already a requirement for a notice, so.
Yep.
30 Peggotty Beach Road is where the fill went from 21 Peggotty Beach Road. So that went into a flood zone, raised an elevation. So this is a violation letter going out in the next couple of days. And we'll have that person in next.
We want that fill out of there yesterday.
Yeah, at least it's not.
It's not
middle
going
of
to stay there
winter.
for 30 years. That's,
Yeah, I know, and who knows what's in it.
Who
We
was
still
the
don't know.
contractor, do you know?
I do, and I talked to them, I said they're gonna be part of this whole.
Yeah, because you know what happens. Oh, no, we didn't, they put it there out of their own volition, yeah.
Right.
Nobody
So
asked them to.
they've called and said, gee, can we sit down and talk? I said, yeah, but not this week. I mean, till tomorrow or the next day. Orders of conditions. Carol has signature pages on all 3 of these. And,
So don't anybody leave before signing.
right.
But we need motions to accept, do we not?
Right. The first one was the addition with the patio in the background. They agreed to do 10 Rosa Rugosa plants in the back.
this is Turner Road?
Yep.
Okay.
So we need a motion
We need a
to
mo-
accept the order of conditions for 144 Turner Road.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
26A Newport, that's the one near you with the septic.
You need to make that motion.
Make a motion to accept the order of conditions at 26A Newport.
I second.
The next one was the beach.
All those in favor?
Aye.
There we go.
The next one was the beach nourishment.
Make a motion to accept the order of conditions for Town of Scituate DPW between 74 Glades Road and 35 Surfside.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
The finalizing of the orders, we just did Elm Park, but Almond was closed and everything last time, but we only had 3 signatures, so we need a whole new signature page, I think, from that one.
Okay.
So no, those 2 both need to be signed. So
We're all approved, we just need signatures.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, enforcement orders,
Wait, we have a bylaw? Order?
oh, thank you. We don't want to miss that one.
No, probably not.
Did you guys see the
The
draft?
conduit thing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep, and there were handwritten things on there. Okay, so both attorneys are in agreement, and I think we can close this one out.
And DEP gave
Yes.
their okay too,
Yes.
so, yeah.
DEP says as long as you're not doing additional
Right.
disturbance, so
Right,
we can make
right.
sure the culvert is a small.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to accept the bylaw order of conditions BTZ Realty Trust Costello lots 31 and 32 Fieldstone.
Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You abstaining?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna,
no vote from.
I'm gonna
Bill.
abstain,
Bill,
Joan,
yes,
on that.
Bill used
abstains?
nonverbal communication to abstain.
Yeah. We had some add-ons to public safety glades.
Oh, yes. Glades was that one with Steve.
Okay.
Yeah. Public safety, okay. They had a meeting today out there. There was gonna be a pull-off lane on Chief Justice Cushion to allow people to get in the police station without blocking traffic. For some reason, Mass Highway denied it, so now it's a curb on that side, and you're flying down, the main drag on Chief Justice Cushion, you have to take a sharp right in there. So they really need more visibility now to be able to see when they're coming out, and people need to be able to see coming in. So they've asked me to go back to the approved plan and see if it'd be okay to trim some bushes and then maybe to even excavate some of the brush out front. It looks like some of the brush they want to take out was already going to be gone because there was going to be the lane there. So this came up today, so I told them that, we would talk about if it's a requirement for public safety, maybe the commission would be okay with doing that. But this is one that everybody's watching, so we gotta
I was
make
just
sure.
gonna say, we better make sure we cover our
Yeah,
bases on it. Yep.
How much do they have to clear, Pat?
I was out there with the police chief, the fire chief, and the clerk of the works today, and they just want site angles, so it wouldn't be a squaring off, it would just be, plus they denied the light at Booth Hill and Manwell, or wherever it is there. So there's not gonna be a traffic light, so people are gonna be flying down there, so it's not gonna be in the wetland, but
Do you
it'll
think
be
they
in the
might set up a
buffer.
couple of speed things along there?
Wow.
Yeah. So, there is gonna be a light more toward the front of the building, flashing red, it can be activated, but at that intersection, there isn't gonna be one, so. I told them that, if it's a public safety thing, usually the commission will go along with it, as long as it's minimalized, minimized. So,
Do we
I'll have
need
the
something
plan out.
specific, though, that says what they are going to do?
yeah, we first have to see what was approved, how much they can take under the current order, and then how much is.
Right, we should have like an overlay showing what we approved and then where they're gonna trim and what they wanna take out versus that. And like you
Right.
say, it might not even be that material when you overlay them.
Right. Yeah, I told them it's like we can't just wing it. We need to
Right.
see it drawn on a plan. So
Yeah.
I told the clerk, Laurie from CTA, I believe it is, that I'd pull the plan out tomorrow and talk with her after talking with you guys. And I mean, if it looks like it can be done safely. I don't know if it has to be done before our next meeting or not. That was the thing, so
Well, they're not pulling in and out of there right away.
no, probably not.
I don't think they've cleared the trail yet that they're supposed to build behind that as part of those conditions.
No, they were talking about the berm today too, so I can find out more about
Maybe they
that.
can roll all that together. But there's supposed to be a trail constructed
Right.
as part of that.
Right.
And then it doesn't look like the berm's as large as what they had originally proposed.
It was supposed to be more of a buffer, a visual buffer back
Right.
there too. Yeah, I can ask about that too.
Okay.
And if anybody wants to find out what the plan looks like, you can get in touch with me in the next few days. I can give you a heads up as to what it is, and hopefully we can bring it to the next meeting and just
Okay.
do it done.
We have to plan a next meeting date.
Joel, do we want
Not the next meeting date, but the one after.
to wrap up the enforcement orders and next?
Let's do that first.
Okay, Lot 4, haven't heard from him. We issued the enforcement order. The fine is gonna be $100. It hasn't got mailed yet because we've
Where's Lot 4 on
gotta
this?
get the ticket book from, I believe it's the police, has the ticket book on that.
Thank you
Okay.
very
But
much.
in the meantime, Greg Moore said they're hoping to come in for a certificate of compliance, and I said, it's not gonna happen. The whole stormwater thing and the replanting needs to be done, so.
Right.
Is the fine?
100.
So this is tomorrow. Tomorrow's project is this one. This one in the enforcement order for 24 Webster. So that has to be, this one requires a vote.
Which one requires a vote, I'm
Gillespie?
sorry?
Yeah, no, 24 Webster.
Yeah.
Gillespie was issuing the ticket, we already issued the enforcement order. Schwecky, 24 Webster, we voted to issue an enforcement order last time. Tonight, the language is here to ratify, so people have to ratify and sign, and I don't know if you saw the language. Did Carol send that out today? Okay, so it talked about a wall being constructed after the certificate of compliance. It prevents water from flowing freely under the, so that's the language in it. We just have to ratify it and mail it tomorrow, certified.
So it's here for us to sign?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So do we have to vote on it or just sign it?
Nope, you already voted.
Okay.
Just have to sign. And then Carter is Pondview Ave in Mitchell. Mr. Carter was in last time. He called to see if he needed to come in tonight, and I said he didn't need to, but he's welcome to. He took out the concrete pilings. We were out there the other day, and he took out 4 of the poured concrete areas with big equipment and took out fencing. Left some fencing in where it may actually serve a purpose. It's preventing people from falling into a culvert.
Okay.
Then he has other work that he's planning and he'd like to do, and, I mean, my recommendation would be, we thank him for taking that piece out, but now he needs to file an order to find out if he owns the property, which he may
Questionable.
not.
Yeah.
And what else he's got in mind, and vegetation and all that. So he's very amenable to working with us.
Okay.
There's still concrete in there.
Where the fence remains.
Yeah.
Right, but that might be something that he has to
It's
keep
keeping
in
that
place.
culvert up, so that might be something.
Yeah, that might not be a bad, as long as he owns the property.
Right, we need a plan.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, we need a
Yes.
plan and not only for what's been done and rectified, but what he plans to do.
So,
I mean, there's some
an
fence
af-
posts that are
Yeah, and after
8,
the
10
fact.
feet high.
Right, and after the fact order, and show us what was done and what he plans to do.
Yep.
Okay. And that's it for the enforcement orders. Then there's, I guess, at 271 Central, there's been some cleaning up to do. We still have a meeting pending with Mrs. Duffy about this.
As I mentioned to you earlier, it looked like a lot had been cleaned up, but there was also some stuff that looked like it had been dumped off to the north side of the property. Not a lot, but some,
Okay.
more than should be there. So there's still work to be done.
And we had talked to her about sitting down, and going through the whole order in a public meeting.
Yeah.
Okay. Rousseau, this is the attorneys for the rest of the family. They agreed to set up a meeting with us. We just haven't sat down with the plans and the orders to go through that. And if anybody's interested, I'll
Let me know when
send
you're
out.
gonna-
Let me know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will. I'll send out, and that's, tomorrow I can do that.
So everybody's gonna show up for that one?
Uh,
I thought the attorney was gonna get the sign off from everybody else.
He decided that the other ones are controlling the money, so they're the ones that have to do it.
Yeah, last was they're gonna give money and I'm gonna,
There's not enough attorneys involved in this.
yeah.
Right.
You gotta get a lot of billable hours going, to
Yeah.
get all the meters running.
There you go. Gotta make a living.
140 River Street, we're told that, they're gonna be on it. DEP now is involved, so, and he did say, show me the pictures, and he's, oh yeah, it looks like it's in our jurisdiction, so that's where that is. I don't know how many years later that is.
Yeah, tell them they're the ones who called us originally and asked Joe Urbanski and I. DEP called and said, we got a report, there's a seawall in the river, could you go look at it?
Was that 2006?
Oh, man, long time ago. Yeah, probably something like that.
Gotta love it.
Egypt Beach Road, I'm gonna skip by one. Egypt Beach Road, we have, Brad Holmes has done a flagging, but he hasn't sent in the plan. So I'd rather walk out there with the plan showing what his soil results were before I take the walk. So
We need to get that moving, don't we? Really?
Yeah. Yeah, so, so they've paid Mr. Holmes, we're just waiting for the report. And definitely there's flagging on the dirt where there used to be vegetation and there isn't anymore. So this is fairly big wetland, fairly big buffer, it looks like. So he agreed to work with them on a restoration plan. I said, all right, let's, we'll call them into a meeting and we'll see what we have and we can walk the site,
Yeah.
so. And 31 Candlewood,
Apple, pears.
pears. Yep,
Some
we
pears.
we
Bill
went
and I
out.
got that Bill and I got that done.
A
It's
few of
done.
us were
That's
out
where
there.
the boat is pictured.
What did you do, surrender?
No. So, we measured, and it looked like the 25-foot buffer would include like 15, 16 existing planted pear trees, and that's where we are at the...
One row of pear trees.
So instead of being 25 feet out of the buffer, they're 20 feet out of the buffer. Not out of the buffer, instead of 25 feet from the wetland, they're 20 feet from the wetland, this row of pear trees.
Because
And
there
then-
was compromise reached for 25 feet rather than 50 feet.
So there's 80 trees in the 50-foot buffer, but letting...
Are you guys getting what's happening here yet?
It's called negotiation fatigue, where you just...
He just did the 5 feet just to give you...
No, he had
This has
disturbed
been a
the...
game of inches. This has been like a football.
He disturbed the whole area and has restored...
5 and then he does 20. That just didn't...
Well, he was all the way into the wetlands.
Right.
And
So
many
he's-
years
I
ago,
remember
we
that
started
part.
restoration, and then whatever you agreed on, it was a little more, and it's been this.
Okay.
So, at any rate, what's...
Really giving anything by taking
He removed rows and rows of trees.
Right, I remember
So
that.
he's back to this, so basically, he's down to 2 rows of trees left. If we remove one more, he's got 1 row of trees left.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
We're not talking about we're not talking about a deck, we're not talking about a house.
Right.
We're talking about a row of trees.
Until next year.
Of trees.
I hear you.
No,
I hear you.
I think he's, poor guy.
He's worn Frank out. Frank's ready to
No,
just...
no. What I would like to see, we could ask him, and maybe Mr. Kennedy's onto it, is there's a tremendous amount of Phragmites that have started up in there. And if we want to have any mitigation from Mr. Kamen, I would suggest that we allow him
Touche, Rich.
to leave the trees where they are and to maybe come back to us with some non-chemical removal of some of the...
Unlike the Roundup.
I was going to say, instead of goats, I'm going to use bobcats.
Bottles of Roundup all over the place.
Get those.
Have him get a herd of goats.
So,
Okay, we're getting a little punchy.
so this site,
I'm assuring you don't mean the fur-bearing bobcat.
so we're kind of at
With
it.
tires.
Oh,
We're
they're
kind of at an
talking trophy.
impasse now as to whether we're at a point where, okay, we've satisfied for the most part the gist of what we wanted to accomplish.
think-
And are we doing more harm than good? Are we doing anything for the environment by pulling a row of pear trees out? I mean, what is the upside to that? Now, on the other side, it was an overwhelming gross violation, and the other perspective would be that we should adhere to every inch of what we originally decided to do. There are different schools of thought on the
I'm
board.
with Frank. Now that we got back to the 38th parallel, let's just...
There may be some other people with some other ideas about the whole thing.
So you're also setting precedent to people who may also, violate regulations.
Right, if
and
you
laws.
Point.
violate, you get rewarded with being able to keep it. That's the message I think
Well,
we're delivering.
that loses sight of the tremendous work that has been accomplished there in terms of restoration.
I don't think it's admissible anyway if something else happens. In another case.
Yeah, no, because they're never the same.
Right.
They're always different circumstances,
So you don't
yeah,
have to worry about that part.
yeah.
I just think that he's certainly restored a good deal of the area. He's cleaned it up.
Yeah.
What we've got left here is a row of trees that are 5 feet closer than we had asked for. It's all natural, and I don't see the point in ripping out this row of trees. I just don't see that being a benefit to anybody. And if we're looking for something from this, I would just suggest that we think about the Phragmites that have started up there and whether or not we want to ask him to do some sort of Phragmite eradication or at least some control.
It doesn't involve.
I was going to say, I'd be very
Glyphosate.
careful about inviting any work in the wetlands,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, from my perspective, the only other weight to this argument would be Pat's, the work that he's done to get this far, and that he would have to be okay with this, from my perspective.
Well, I think I understand where Frank's coming from, that Phragmites removal would be another benefit we could get out of this if it worked. I mean, it's just a real difficult plant to get rid of, and since we've been out there in the last few years, it's grown by an acre of Phragmites. I mean, I don't know how much, and he caused it.
Right.
So-
Right, it helps them when you clear the land so they can come in and...
So,
Make it easier.
so that's why I'm saying, maybe you put something on them. I guess the thought that I had was if we do have some sort of order that he's got to comply with, does it give us the opportunity to periodically just check to see if that's happening? And do we want to do that? And then that way we're kind of assured that there's no more changes. If we say, listen, we want to come out once a year and see how you're making out with these Phragmites, then we've got a clear reason to stay on top of that.
The regs in the statute will allow you to do that.
Right.
Well, the other factor to consider here is that if we pull the pear trees out, the row of pear trees, that's all going to be Phragmites within a year.
Unless you replant a natural plant in there immediately.
So what does that, so we
Nothing
get...
has happened with this project immediately over years.
Yeah, but I don't understand
Well,
the upside to
get
a
rid of-
native plant and pulling out
Right.
all the pear trees as a row of pear trees.
So what does the current enforcement order say? There's one outstanding right now?
There's been a lot.
Yeah, that's...
There's more than one outstanding
Oh, this has
right now?
been going on
This
for
has been going on
years.
for over 10 years.
So we're gonna issue, how is it, what form is this gonna take? Is it gonna be an enforcement order that he has to remove the Phragmites back to a certain?
That was part of one of the original enforcement orders, remove the
Oh.
Phragmites. But it's gone on a long time, and I don't know. And who would do the work and who would pay for it?
He would.
Do the work too? I mean,
No,
does he
no, you
have
should ha-
the expertise?
No, a professional should do it.
No. I think in this case, he's a farmer, he's there, let him come up with a plan, ask him for a plan that we can approve to do some Phragmite eradication, or at least stem the thing. Let him come back with a couple of things, say, this is what I'd like to try. If we agree, then let him go forward and do it.
And if it doesn't work,
Then
we're
he's gotta
back
come
to
up
where
with,
we were.
he's gotta come up with something else.
I'll be gone before this one ever gets resolved.
Well, I mean, if he doesn't come up, I think that we can write the order of conditions to say that, this needs to get done, and we specify those parameters. And if it doesn't get done, then you're gonna end up pulling those
It's not
pear
a,
trees, so it's an incentive to get it done.
And if he doesn't do things that he's supposed to do by a certain date, he should be fined. And that creates
could
some
do that.
urgency, because all of a sudden there's a daily fine. He's gonna make that a priority.
well, you could make that part of that, a fine or something like that, if you thought you could. Here's what we're talking about. So, 25 feet off the wetlands is the middle of this tractor row.
Okay.
So there's a row and the wetlands is over here. So there's a row of these trees, and this is literally 5 feet from here to those trees. And then there's one more. So he would be removing that row of trees, then it falls into a brushy area, and then it goes into the wetlands.
Now, is there a pond over there, or what is it, just
It's a marsh,
It's a marsh.
freshwater marsh.
Oh,
It's a jungle.
That's your illustrious agent.
The A-team.
Taking off pear trees.
Mr. T?
Bill was on the phone.
Yeah. I'm here to help. Bye. I'll be up here
Got a
dry.
bad signal. I'm losing you.
It's 9:30.
That's what I was hoping.
Oh, I think your suggestion's
Correct. I think he's pretty well worn down. I think if we can get a little bit more in terms of dealing with some of these frags, maybe he'll come up with an ingenious way to deal with them, that'll solve all our problems.
As long as we put that he can't use any Roundup product or glyphosate, and the product he uses is pre-approved by us.
Now, this isn't is this an order now, or are we're working on an enforcement order?
It's an enforcement order.
Okay.
Yeah, because it wasn't something that would have been allowed if he had submitted a proposal on NOI.
But then at some point, I thought we might have had him, I know we had to get wetland scientists and planting
But
plans.
are we working on an order of conditions with that?
Yeah, I could check.
All right, let's just take a
There
look
might have been something filed, I mean, this goes way
and
back.
see if we can put that together in a letter.
Because we required, wetland scientists and planting.
Can you live with
plan.
that?
I'm done going out there. You guys can. I am all done.
Are we okay?
I'm okay.
Fatigue.
All right.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Great.
CSC for, did we do 100 Greenfield?
No, we haven't done that yet. Oh, down the bottom. Yeah, we did Seaside. Okay, 119 Turner. This is right near the bend at, where Turner and Oceanside meet. And it was an elevation. And my question to the building department was, they have all wooden slats underneath. You can't even see the pilings, but there's spacing in between.
Yeah.
And I guess there's building code for how big the space is per boards, and I'm not familiar with it. So, I mean,
I always thought that was crazy to have the skirting, but a lot of
Yeah.
it's required for safety and all that.
oh,
sort of-
really?
so,
Because it
yeah.
looked like it would get washed out in
It will.
Well, that's all a flood zone. I mean, that,
It's velocity.
But everybody puts skirting on it. I mean,
Yeah.
For privacy or
Yeah.
whatever.
It
If
all
you don't
winds
park
up
your
in the
car
marsh.
there, you put,
that's a tough area.
so, I mean, is it something that,
I think it's fine.
yeah, we don't want debris all over the place, but,
No.
as long as he meets whatever code.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll just put in the, if you've met the building code,
I wouldn't,
FEMA
we're
code.
not, the building code, to me, is between him and the building department.
Yeah, well, I
That's-
think it's a FEMA requirement, so we're supposed to follow FEMA, so. But it's up on pilings and the as-built. Stairways are different, like stairways can come as close to the property line, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was that one, and then, 161 turn, I'm gonna have to pull the file, I think it's
Well,
over there.
Pondview Extension?
Pondview Extension, the plan was submitted by an engineer, the as-built plan, there was a mistake on the plan. This is right near the other Pondview violation one.
Yeah.
This was Paul Sharon's house on the A-zone, it's in the A-zone around the bend, and they followed the approved plan, but a mistake was made on the as-built, and I called him and said, do you really mean this? And he said, nope, that's a mistake, I can correct it, and it was the first floor foundation height. So I'd say, as long as the first floor foundation height is a foot above flood, it's not the level that's shown here. They just took the old plan, threw it on the new plan, and didn't make the change.
So they have to get you new plans in order to get a CSC?
One number on it, yeah.
Yeah,
So, I mean,
okay.
I think we could issue it because it's, he guaranteed me that it is at that level.
Well, if
But
you
the
feel
plan-
like you're gonna get it.
Yeah,
then
if I don't
okay.
get it, then we won't.
But if we don't, right, then no CSC.
So if you want to vote it contingent upon that being straightened out, that'd be fine.
Yeah, make a motion that we issue a CFC for 119 Turner.
A second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion, we grant a CFC for 8, AKA 12 Pondview Extension, under the circumstance that they provide the correct as-built.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
161 Turner?
I have to pull that, that's over there, they had some notes on it that Carol and I have been talking to people about. So I'll get that in a second. Greenfield is a brand-new owner that is in there, and I knocked on the doors there, they had no idea about any of this, and so their attorney must have missed the...
Bad title attorney again.
Yeah, again. So I walked the site, and it was a pool, like from 2012. The pool was in the right place. There's debris in 2 or 3 different locations. So I think that would be one issue. And also, there is a planted area that was done, and another planted area that I can't tell whether it was done or not. So I'd like to check with the previous owner to see if they have any proof that they planted there. It's all, junk right now, invasives. It might have been planted, it might not have been. but it was years ago.
So we're not doing a COC now?
No.
Okay.
So it's pending. And then 161 Turner, this one, this was on last time, and we asked for an as-built, and the structural engineers don't do an as-built for our purposes, so Bob Crawford got one, and he wrote a bunch of conditions. And we have to decide whether it's met enough or not.
What's the nature of the order? Oh, all right.
There's been a lot going on.
No, really?
These all have to get signed before everybody goes.
So how about the coastal advisory, Rich?
The next meeting's next week. Good luck. Hope you're around.
What's the date on that?
Next Tuesday, I believe. There's been nothing else since then. There'll be a meeting next Tuesday. Which is what, the
27th, Tuesday the 27th.
These electronic calendars, whip out the paper and the notes.
What day, when's
Tuesday, the 27th?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know where it's at?
Marine Center.
The Maritime Center?
Maritime.
Beaches, they closed for the summer, or what?
No. We had a meeting last week. I spoke to John Dennehy today. He's coming to the next meeting. There's some things on the agenda that have a little bit of meat on the bone, so we're looking forward to moving that along. A rather extensive survey, and they're compiling the results of that monkey survey, so stay tuned.
Okay.
Okay, this is from Mr. Beviano, and it was Rivermore Engineering, and then Bob Crawford sent in a letter, and Bob had a couple of questions, and I don't know if they're significant enough to...
What's the address?
161.
161 Turner Road.
Thank you.
So here's the approved plan. This, you have the as-built, right?
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
as-built.
Okay, so there's some differences, but the elevated and the property line, I guess as long as you're not over the property line, it's...
Yeah, so there's a deck there, deck here. These are pretty much...
So his second comment, the 4 front deck stairs were replaced by a new 4x6 landing and 13 stairs.
So that was that was there.
Yeah.
And now over on the side, there's a landing with steps.
Makes sense, if you elevate the house, you're gonna have to have more stairs.
Yeah.
Can't get by with that.
Well, we only approved 4.
A jump.
Trampoline?
Jump,
Democrats.
just jump. And number 3, the rear deck was cut back, but he's contradictory, because he goes, it was cut back 7 to 9 feet from the seawall.
Yeah, you can see, because look at the size of that rear deck, and then look over here. They cut it back some, and then they got landing and stairs.
So maybe he meant was
And the
cut back
scale-
from 9 to 7.
Yeah, the scale is the same.
And a 4x4 by 3-inch landing and 13 stairs were attached there.
Yeah.
To parallel with the house.
I wanted to get off the
Landing
back
and
deck,
stairs
too.
are supported by concrete piers, pressure-treated posts. I think that's
Sound okay?
fine.
Yeah.
And Rivermore said that they thought that it was built according to their...
Substantially
Okay, good.
according to the...
And Bob's okay with it, for the most part?
Yeah, he just kind of, he doesn't give,
never
he
says
just
it's
says,
okay.
here's...
Oh, he just, he doesn't give, yeah, I get it.
Here's what's a little different,
Yeah.
yeah.
The best way to...
No, he's great. He doesn't sugarcoat, spin, he just says, here's the differences.
It's the facts, man, just
Yeah.
the facts.
It's like Joe Friday. Okay.
Is that
We gotta decide
So we can
that
approve that one, all right? And then for trails, I got a couple reports back from the guys maintaining trails. They're happy to get out there with a little cooler weather. They're knocking back brush and seeing a lot of activity, and seen a lot of cars in the parking lot, so we're, and in both Ellis and in the West End, Howard and Rich are doing a great job, so we're pretty lucky to have them out there.
So get them
Excellent.
into a meeting and thank them.
We should.
Yes, we should.
And I just met with another scout that wants to take on another portion of the Hubble Trail, and so we're cooking.
Those guys are terrific.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last scout did a phenomenal job. The same young man that cleaned up the marsh between 7th and 10th Ave.
Yeah. Some of the kids that help out then doing their own projects.
Yeah.
Lisa, do we need to get this date, or can we do it the next time?
Oh, so the meeting?
Yeah, the meeting after next.
What do we want to do
We
about
should
that?
make a decision on that, and we also have to approve the minutes from September 7th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of September 7th as written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so if we back it up from the 19th to the 26th,
Right.
then we're scheduled to have one the
We're only
following
here.
week, right?
We're gonna skip, we don't have one on the 12th, we're gonna have one on the, and we're not gonna have one on the 19th because it's town meeting.
Right.
So we're going to the 26th. Are we okay with deadlines or anything?
That'd be 21 days. No?
So we
Makes
can't
it-
mess anything up.
Makes it a little exciting.
Oh, we could still mess things up.
Get it all covered.
I think that's a better solution than trying to go early, because if we ever get anything like tonight,
Yeah.
we'll never make it.
No,
But
that's,
can't we also talk to people if it wasn't going to meet the tagline, to see if they, they'd sign off and say
Yes.
that they're
Yeah.
okay with it?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can do that.
Yeah.
I know there's a name for it, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
So if we switch it to the 26th, then do we want to skip the 2nd and then go?
Well, we don't wanna start
No,
doing that.
Let's just leave everything in place,
Well, then it
We'll
would
be
be
back 1
3
week and
weeks.
we'll have 2 weeks in a row and we
Yeah.
can really enjoy each other.
We've
Right.
done that.
and we'll have shorter meetings, so that's a
Okay,
positive.
do we need a motion for that? I
Yeah,
mean, do we
we
have
do,
to
don't
vote on that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, hit it.
We'll
Go
get
ahead.
it posted.
Make a motion to change the second meeting of October from the 19th.
October-
October,
sorry.
from the 19th to the 26th.
Second.
Does anybody want to check with Penny to see if she's got any other
What do you
trips?
think? No, I'm tired.
All in favor?
I want to go home.
That's the next motion.
Make a motion to adjourn?
second,
All in favor?
heartily.
Thank you, sir.